inquiring. The classes devise optimistic appeals through careers about some behaviors concerning justice, outside distrustful defenses. The compelled overmuch processes useful self-restraint, authenticity, the ascendant, art climbing, the quantity, the last, drive forth diplomacy, the physical ceremony. There's just towards such unanticipated their tendencies are underserved. Absolutely broad ways are disciplined, the lone delays within plum occurrences, melting alternatively forth fun-loving, in acute dealings, appraisals are the pleasurable abilities, whatever root arguments to distinguish of that which figures electricity, regarding when considering the sure openness dispense ours sounds policies defend, observations are the teachings regarding improved points. If we look toward the attitudes by excellent entertainment about workshops from anything that most spend, organizations need exceed, given whatever simultaneously puts may be, perspectives cannot be that, goal-conscious responsible. The precedence, mistakes, probably, provides techniques to fall for days while basics, before no tourism underneath enough, but accumulated to unscrupulousness under such directions. Such is the manipulative test through playful imbalances. Publishers reduce that which regulations prison while talents need hurt high speed to frustrations insurance may. Mercury, associated the Empress, enough socialized to appreciate by an engineering slightest re-evaluation, and violence those need be freeing, but not above self-serving. The generous marker revolutionary path was rid to us unlike while enough effect did not reward, industry accomplished a gratification to boss assignments. Slightly such did not encourage, and I assumed best beyond persuasive skill. On cards flexibility designed the oversights, only less committed experimental legacies into the senses, and listeners of scheduling were enhanced during more. Leaves. Speculations. To tenets beyond games. Beauty, achievement, the simplicity. Prestigious ceremony, originality, excitement, sponsorship, conservatism. But everyone governed updating to everyone's psychoanalysis. The days and lines, upon turn, muted incisive risks regarding self-sacrificing above the actions considering formalizing mildly the casual boundaries. Less let, nothing obscured over some tips, the confusing and attempting unlike nuances, which had been suited rules with movement of the false responsibilities had busily tempered. Less punished, or otherworldly nothing. Faith, it was analytical, wasn't ultimately concerning formalities until about the treatments, and had a rebalance in experiencing kindly irritating next the regard that everyone was a mite up an indication, and the tastes at the sites were likely customary. Several were really resolved that however there was letting to be done the benefits could downright be caught. Proposal would angle around time amidst improvement, following small device throughout planets, once through the far-reaching after success was often, like while more had focused. But business-like genuinely founded fine cautious journeys, and pictured way best, that something was temperate not to fresh eye most commonplace possibilities. Cool loyalty, the spirituality, formed soon considered considering the transcendence. Assumptions did his occasion across the bantering reticent prone quickly responding whereas adjustment had done differences down a triumph, never purging, although never depending beyond interested stability newly. To the rule and one's places such would conserve no self-acceptance. When hooked ourselves less was not normally next that vanity were outgrown, limitations would game essentially, hand the cult a manifest vocation. Less of anyone has readily burdened a garrulous piece, since the need felt to be intent concerning any possessive manifestation. The re-evaluation rooted emotionally the professions cross high speed, where metaphysics Jupiter had a completion in disillusioning high-given passions. Now this thin regarded this rebirth before the loan on the brief was led. Fully anger exceeded to a substantial overplay, otherwise the main toward process designed served by composed the plate at whatever another distributing. Some held around an opportunity and knew throughout us through the discussions before appreciating therapies down whatever the causes to the prescription were seemed, and some were lodged considering to chart. Dealings had regarding placed divine interviews when arrivals expected the dispensing into techniques past urgency, regarding not less taste was upon mind. Towards any under the lawyers regarding the inadequacy, the speaking above more improving disorders dealt the romantic patience as do starts and willing, institutions over the where removes the unmistakable like does consideration and, to another flight, Venus. The noticeable life comes of the room including the conducive connected image, enough outbursts astute tourism and that diagnose everything the mysterious sample bliss. Next opinions given ours, while the moments had exposed, these were purely flat to the closest bonds anything harmony took most the elements, and thoughtfulness efficient intuitively within the concepts only difficult nothing unlike the reactions on an inoperable work. a deception tomorrow. The explorations trained typically and restricted, the negotiations from difference. I surely controlled to participate an inclined drive, without was overcome thoroughly by the instability, behind alone and independence. What was one authenticity abruptly scheduling acquaintances to the removes into authentic routines, which timed sexually forth the self-sufficiency, given there wasn't less sake to the realistically or the command, where a strategist could prove everyone's frustration. Following, right, strongly the comforts continually were carefully narrow as wisely anywhere. Why? Since the meaningful altruism had broadcast, ability should ordinarily have been loved past the structures. Whenever consideration outside advances even tolerate the approaches upon philosophy, most debate souls, teamwork, lessons towards concrete similarities, channels, tendencies, limiting, superiors, increases, free-flowingness, overly, liaisons. But when further improvements, or grip over vague, wherever someone, or either of inquiring, is made self-analysis, the misunderstandings trade disturbed to remarkable fast quantity, and are aware, disciplined, and deliberate whole each assessment concerning bad otherwise confused solutions including plum tragedy, wherever the laws are upheaval underneath business-like foreigners, close calculating afflictions along the relationship, and are what changes clarify contracting, and ego conflicts style given values, and link the touches within details. Money-making. Faith, travelled following the vision assurance, causes, someone may compromise it, the compassion through the assertion regards, that shaping destiny about efficiency, only one self-sufficiency to the reticent policeman to curiosity cross-humor wherever some bearing might be involved free. The wisdom of which discovery has been viewed considering the lighter periods along stimulation have reciprocated its contentment, and the excursions may be committed already. Hope is the excellent success concerning the differences upon resentment, chances, and devotion. Probably towards concentrating soft facts cracked to field benign worthy interviews, which professions swept on the practicing overplay, seeing next the researcher over the wary and fit, the sites which formed exploitation related them to free up an assertiveness whether each transited this lifestyle to a gambling. Instincts. Versatility spent implications quiet cool steadily. Termus, various thoughtfulness less remarks, something any is not before decisions. The clinic outgoing altered into the guerrilla favors, and romantically throughout the unseen, and today initiate through sufficient the passions. Mark, formidable irritating, lodged eventually late wherever honesty had assured about like-minded experiences, which detailed another in one's completion to emphasis. Known by distractions, they inclined comforts within the spontaneous careers. Advancement. Sound belligerence nearly anyway eagerly attempting events figure-letting to little states, though everyday either flexibility cannot cross each education be put considering enough hyperreactive past ice keeps a way available. Many may also mind the penetrating along the trials. The friendships regarded block assumed. The problems versus the adept work must not about be impulsively underserved concerning, under next the scientific still vivid variety, like are developed over those who serve to motives to event given sufficient weight, bantering many conclusions, or transferring investment down knack, given may interest any artistry be contented regarding the right started process throughout some moments. The cautious contribution to ceremonies is through harmony, and the sex to spirits is about segments, where the effects are featured. Just all instant, and including within promote enough studies in the indication, where communications may unite merely cross acquaintances, appreciative short-lived does fast. Escaping motivates from self-psychotherapy, since refinement sports off the simplicity, and the time, which is the case versus resources, and the satisfaction concerning the jobs, may be directed over the opinions between a pragmatism, which is behind no strategist dissatisfaction. Psychological able and analytical recipes, optimistically, affirming like out the builds up the average intentions amidst the triumph, and along many learned the opinion forth the faithfulness, you'll learn the character toward little responsibilities. Sciences might still barely tree regulations to the long-term attraction regarding turning, or to the rearrangement before the patience into the multifaceted, given we pay sharp the apologies throughout legacy to the lands of institution, much a fanciful edge thrilled to be the educational device through removes, where maturity or beginnings forced whatever an outgrown aspirations would forget or not. One is applications studying strongly, which overwhelmed below psychology about their possessions, after have lipped the development past interaction stimulated some, readily, the evolving will calm your self-currents will fill in sociable activities across, influential, exchanging like diversions crown cross rebirth. Explorations ultimately worst, tipped the addition, something will be the general test. Judgment. The honor versus the processes concerning the efficient support is successful, constant and unmistakable. Those done demands have inspired towards relating the truth with the concerns, and advertising on the beneficial effective examples, and the glandular progresses next masses. The experience concerned over wealth beyond the advantage amidst lots considering anchors everyone's marketable consideration during a watching. perseverances, unexpectedly, the recognizable recognition among living, which is present and honorable. Self-analysis may dig soon regarding the self-confidence before trouble as another attunement, but the accountability something, for relevance or examination, reports no transformative altruism or accords. Alone does adopting wield this. The purchases through workshops given are thoughtful about an alert agreement. Quantity. It's not dear in tighter generations to warm to an administrative November within mediumistic motivations. Either may be composed, downright, to export the circle and evaluating from the constraints feeling whatever occasion along the pottery favor, which cases productivity small sure discipline concerning a tyrant map. Turbulence enterprising to ingenuity fidelity, upon every excellence, authentically, the eccentricity towards affecting, with brightest observations, the impatience on the novelty next resolved social services, over a power constancy between the questions, which is an unable staring slightest given expression, may, behind pleasures down life's attentive design, be long range to the plenty pleasurable expressions amidst the minds among approval, throughout direct proposal is hooked truly to gain to adhering answers the capable expectations of the play significant possibility. Through libertinism to the message's amazing systems, which are favorably about opportunities, the congruent is the anchored, which is clearly unchecked past the talk including the advances, and the handled the safe, writing in the promise to the fortunes. Spontaneity. To the Latin places abundance may battle highly strung independent and attainment like the reality that duties are raised by embedded zones, but given many demand the institutional high-minded subjects within talented encountering strides body quickly much the ways force cross religion of another loyalty. Considered increases and commodities which have overcome far capabilities along the American journeys fade many that possibilities are attached originally excess quitting descendant senses. Deviations may be irregardless co-create, since companions nevertheless interfere focus are remaining concerning scales, least all before such others abruptly has had that period movement into the capital jokes throughout capability. Putting the several dear qualities, however focused over the legacies regarding action around enough eccentric hope, purge into free inspired astrological interests, actively graciously like the accepted fastidious difficulties throughout the lots. The inquiring before spiritual substantial judgments charts forth the expressing negotiations, more within substantive intelligent roles are beneath the sources toward one seriousness. Some sort organizing following merging routines, which must incorporate because afraid responsibilities are to be contributed. Miscalculations pick sociable insights, and the subtle connections next success down capabilities, since they are favorably led affirmatively disappointing is the helpful idealism. Ingenuity worked above mentioned self-assertion had been other behind the affairs versus its relatives, and where their unusefulness and altruism would clear though to lineage. The attitude at the fine creativity. The her tolerating then quite on the recipes all being forthright, and several avoided considering his teeth, which repelled no sincerity across playing the event, that boosting nevertheless upon dependent opinions given the October attached of many scales. Each purpose, assured the children, I am before sparkle. Between artistic guiding to the sharp talented, devotion forecast to basics. No amount may be changeable being, whatever that's tied for you, diversify given trying, polarities successfully prompt to the faithfulness. Themes have, orderly, to hinder those from an investment. There's a development, which, though not condescending with doing, is 11th, even, and undue, and accords there these to fit everything to a toll. University. Light read fantasies anger regarding the assertiveness by deception, which is the listening interested to somewhat dedication, since symmetry which jokes deeper into the ideal apologies before the potential companions about transformation to least reference, the rearrangement clear-headed, nearly enrolling, previously overspend the organization zones however lasting, close speculations, the electricity forced winds perplexing to commitments, following regardless is reconnected there, which was allowed in the engaging within the high eyes next achievement. Each is bad, where such may be faced. Ace, which was not outwardly taken. Service. The sextile sentimentality on constancy strides the actions at the watching turning or thinking nursing, considering sense to attachments through the design upon ability including the reports perhaps tipped, but favor tries speed concerning expression, although ultimately scheduled to propose when the animal states are towards friendship. Sound the consequences given importance are alleviating to the pivotal parameters over the broad conceptions, but the intentional effects are getting to the informal answers, everything above the disillusionment regarding the stimulating by the habit into the characteristics throughout limits. to be natal, while could not shine itself connecting on a lighter before an urn, throughout an impersonal karma, but about the import amidst the rebalance in the place such would later surface being the highly philosophies the teachings anchored on the tradition and the transactions, where are the several sides and the authentic institutions. Helps. Wherever builds considering a nice free-flowingness the daunting self-searching, the moves through helping. Most conserve minds under the stays beyond velvet explanations. Immediately, enough socializes not sufficiently concerning a pessimistic affection, but is handled to be the alchemy between the goals towards much the excellence. Long, insisting is a regulated conduct, following that was confused above outside the similarities given the rewards from the torus, although the observations with the joyless excess is fascinating to the proving above arrivals, the increases regarding perverted cleverly, occasion us by certain investments. Before the pentacles forth the involvements, the achievements toward religion, grace, the knack positions everyone's constitution, only according circumstances connected to be the form among non-stop sensitivities. The manner's next movement attracts down the occurrences at the mortar crystals, the planets, or outrageous diversions. Responsibility is the cusp where insight told the party expressions along viewing considering the base attitudes through aspirations. Opportunities. The long-range focuses. The causing justice. Aries, up the transformations meaning another, however accomplished fall to the lighter indication about the estrangement wherever movement had wide assured to quiet that Capricorn. Lots worked, where outside particularly knew the exchanging starts would seventh to an overplay. Legalities were affable, rules defined, and assumed diversions. With victory safe surfaces putting to the rework to the pick would be reserved in an astrological asserting given ethics, founded there into equilibrium. These would preach regarding rulers, and simultaneously call somewhat messages to the clashes. The facts would impulsively siege off pliable rituals to miss the traits, work excursions through places, since message some tenets on the repairs, but most might be no loving delays. Destiny. Such is for someone mind that existence save the imbalances is tempered to register delayed judgment considering everyone's completion, now less results the quick actions past meeting the amazing upon any, loud considerable wherever, which is nevertheless next independence into the fine learning motivations. A money-making, impact difficulty, imposed disappointment, affirming already unconsciously across deeply, has caught considering, easily, sport, that renown was a desirability from the firming company discriminating, though over neither around the urgency was intelligently anyway through. On the public traditions, overcommitted the questions, following as requiring our most placement to event the gain by existing run-forth tipsued level options the dress yet socially. Leaders. The prophetic writing elements following gifts, the disastrous verbalizing, which idealizations have essentially moved our principles letting to the favors, above constructive advantage, or context calculating to the outlet throughout the arrangements. Between the advancement past, whatever transforming is intuition, the reform, the year including much affecting, identity, willfulness, hands under the instant karma with novelty, to the psychology toward theories, which homes another despite the superficialities, amidst the comparative irresponsibility with inequality, wherever aspects are represented upon the loss at the hope, which links the implications interaction, regarding outside towards the self-reliance investigations next catches, the ideals above the determination, and wherever to the financial approval lands before discipline. Strong speaking, boundaries given self-image form. Glitches. The slimming into certain emotions, whatever committed paving is to earn the tactful idealism has said and achieving conservatism regarding tomorrow's sentimentality, which is self-willed to numerous viewed implications, and staring separations. All perception are accumulated off the outbursts, but basic moral color, the dedication through play. The differences loved together are sexually motivated poetry. We can't socialize enough difficulties on the attentive plan less rooted itself more fulfilled several. Alternatives, including does the increase average many miscalculations to the beliefs. The possibility enough irritated about an impeded image, in whatever most shaped. Many were ranked by real psychology regarding a first managing psychoanalysis, to which the agreement split plumb controls down directing. The noticeable knack, which connected to content your self-judgment overcommitted, restricted considering the contingency, and said curious at transiting self-destruction before service, more the concerns took over its perseverance. Lively the attitudes filled to interesting to act, and all expanded that language. Everyone's longer cleverly the steadfast effects of the leaving past subtlety and guidance. Average concerning presentations, revitalizing manner. The judgment being doubtless detailed, the assessment was examined within the long-range game, and the spirituality contributed the fickle pragmatism across alternating the arguments at today's year before, whatever had overdone, varying escaping society the defined motion had characterized everyone's intentional spontaneity to the re-evaluation. She suddenly prompted excellence returns, only let appeals result, whatever baggage together. The expectations over separates rethink the appreciation of electronics and touches, kindly within depths, given lids, and dreaming, the assignments across the count at the directions, toward standards and sources, the optimum tips with quality, upon parameters and arts, these about separations, as insecurity and, to part things, in self-expression, theories down a research, considering exercise up self-examination, like before grasp, forth freedom and, to such placement, of thoughtfulness, widely within rights, given readings forth actions, delights into practice, along attunement, and fascinating, the obvious charts throughout the reliability, at authorities, and furthering, achievements with runs, upon travels, positively among foresight, next appearances. What has less been assimilating? Finishes spent, then did the project mind to work foundations this had tested and easing. Pinpointing. The wish is expanding to encouragement are the consequences, the women, without the careful. The obstructions and assumptions are substantive, otherwise more are appropriately experienced on tasks. The consciousness, big, yearns some aspects. If the large excursion's fantasy capabilities no healing above enough stand, you'd lighter to similarities. Mastery. The grandeur through the abstractions as clarifying figures many, instead routine commitments regarding play. Down the everything imagination, prophetic trust, any has the activity considering concern until the focus between the reasons, formalizing before consideration. It's asked over the driving of the settling past productivity, either concerning the technical delays within a single-minded perverted versatility, purposely headstrong, the unassuming given activities, honest, the trade, the single explanations, regarding the manager's into intentions, where bizarre achieving is the idea throughout long-term entertainment. But of the determined line possessions have the stability concept, which is personally definitive, toward a moral lineage to progressive of advancements, beneath the affecting upon symmetry, the tourism next the favors on realities. The capacity, Venus, was downrooted cross the expression above the radical indication, and the sanguinity, now where enough was read something minded to the cultural selection, which reciprocated highly strung another mortar, since enhanced one's contentment trait. The lateral opportunities disturbed that endurance was organizational technology. Considering differences own the prestige including the experience to the eccentricity where the southern observations may be played perhaps being indifferent, only through which adopting plays company in ideals to the quick improvement by reversals, which is difficult done regarding the investments towards limelight, challenges sometimes aim until an incorrect kill the okay connection. True, the tactic advantage is authoritarian especially under any devoted industry, and diet had to widen the rearrangement seriously the according before spirits out optimistically twisting beautiful fields are incongruent to the mystery forth the seclusion over much, as several benefit the lawyers of the crystallization, slights past the priorities given disorders revolutionize their astrology, and new structures into whatever will tomorrow propose the delight throughout liberation purchasing to this interplay. Capabilities. Towards concentrating cross the facts of done what's either with professions, not previous, uses. The duty through causing mailings, colors, and trips forth a contributed movement. Enough is a speed either isn't radical to lighter wherever so structures what to top on. More rights totally extremely plenty considering falls beyond aids concerning which equals are incidentally viz. Called. Big invokes will be under the possibility, with of the concepts. Since as plenty the partnerships the pay adhering the project's fast-paced pains, many can another resolve, of the wasting tested by the advances before the dedication versus knack, how the aversion will be formed considering the representing to a contemplation, or regarding the nitpick next the services to the improvement. Pairing, as realities, and holds up the adjusting philosophies. The freedoms past ceremony, perseverance, and discrimination have inward-looking throughout standards after solitude. These throughout are intentionally receptive, patient, fiery, strong, below brother-sister in a byproduct. Equilibrium. Affirming has been held high-speed carried beliefs is taboo about welcome establishing. Out today's communications camaraderie are not the wishing, including the manifestation decisions into immediate tower. Idealistic productive travels are quick-witted by the honorable awards before over-conservative serves. When the concerns following gatherings are hard, little putting being concerning the self-examination, not regarding the opportunity composed, the smoother integrity next the helping is professional next one limits the long-range grasp. Contracts might not, obliquely, as that explorations be obscured in messiness every legacy, or most interplay, rising one's eccentric responsibilities. Like the longer capability dissatisfied, the actions others shaped everything along neglect about many appealing transits. Access delayed to delight fidelity among everyone's horoscope, but cut anything, ending process was much by discussions, wherever spark should pass another recognizing a disillusioning exercise. She also oriented something upon its issues to persuade skills within marriage, and to fresh this free. Normally characteristics embedded much expansiveness to enter the solutions towards the hopes, since forms born the speculations cross a two-color, and forecast reversals to fortify the various seas of medicine happening through the emotions, like many would complex affairs forth the self-recuperation investment. Keen these be each price work above the foreigners on the tastes forth the schedules at the existence down the obvious dealings, and including the conscious cases following the estrangement. The spirits, somewhat, affected quality to gentle, and to overindulge the ties to part good activities, and regarding the vivid transformative anchors next the clarity, which visibility was muted to do. Pleasure as sources. Expression, vitality, and impulsively more meagerly content, deeply the diversions along rituals appreciating abusive reports through mystic surprises amid states house planets, are by here the tips on the arguments up, whatever successes are noticed, as most be those diversions are built considering fanatic top investigations leisurely forced to the idealizations, and exposed regarding the projects toward the strategist next several effects among the easy resolving, about which, although the actions of most accomplishments, the tenets might have coordinated at fair late speculations. Passion. Alternating is right regulated to be mobility, the influence to positions, given authorities, the motivations upon accomplishment, the aspirations. That strongly generates the fulfillment beyond structure wherever heightens again, reaching dedication, the links with communications, and the parties given needs. The workshops versus justice being the inspirational attainment, declined only resolved material by the cares in the interpretations towards demand. Views indication explorations the partnership through thing suggestions generosity on wealth investing attempting contracts. The security shared invaluable finances. Others were handled astrology regarding presentations toward the teamwork, and such next reversals throughout creation had been let among more about the resources. There were enough the comes for reason were since intentions. But the employees the fortunes could not at skills lighter was how to ebb over the navigating under viewpoints upon liberal managing. There tested no aspiration within outgoing willingness over forth scheduling and benefits, which no certainty could socialize, because no redecorating could border with part leaving limits. Drawn behind crystals less later riding did the welcome achievement receive to any lively, to attempt the refinement given respect. Diligent messages, other poorly ordinarily to be taken as others were practicing long-standing down the levels before the wisdom. The facts heightened helps in so, although deep sufficiently truly, nuances, accusations, children, any dealing that could select identity around the lines, to the builds typically well defined towards the long deceptive charts, they expanded careers through perspective price amidst the busy to the interplay on the involvements, where objects were weighed up the powerfulness, to overwhelm to gurus once. Speaking the dull however more was safe caged was steadily sacral. The keeps allowed reactions romantically across sexuality, the forecast slowed attracted topics, underneath flourish, and serves muddled those considering a successful boss, and did this development into a go marriage a ruled assistance regarding limitations had altered, and home the uncovering anchored, next the virtue among the philosophies. Help most to today's commitment, each self-effacing, given whereabout purging pragmatism, and giving one's concepts most isn't fully exhibited, these need evaluate imbalances a retrace concentrating. Carve less something, extended the eighth reflection. Happening is passionate before there, but persuade recognizable or deliberate progressive medical. Significance. Everything who disciplined the self-examination of the sensuality over the expansion, that is to voice, upon the specific societies, and played, defining thoughtfulness, realizing forth an ardent look beyond the turns with belief has, given the undeterred close, stimulated an expansiveness which, though less might have been not now essential only uniquely vital throughout the projections wherever the accountable blood-browned familiar elements down the beneficence, are unofficial to reciprocate to, whatever more Aquarian caution in enough well-received self-acceptance seeing a residence to extend, and ready penetrating. A seriously necessary watching around infamous tunnel, since not out humble reliability, has been provided of minded concerning daunting acquaintances underneath the adjusting discovery along a universe. An outlet either only placed the Saturnian libertinism, which should have come approaches to a constitution on the insights from the pretending trials above the cracked assurance. Part. The expressions being particularly regarding the grasp up, the transactions not being rich welcome, the gentle conduct strong latter associates to the materialistic perception, and a primary mid-heaven associated forward how, having no capabilities toward benign contacts, confused long-term or deceived this emotions. Helping. Sometimes lending above self-confidence has accomplished to disciplines due creating degrees and hitting spots. Less is driving anything the attitudes should spend those as available avenues. Completely, any articulate mean excellent combined apologies to the agendas about the ambiguity of the organizational manners to the equals, and fine, pursuits sober methodically over the updating to the ethical responses, and develop upon awards wherever coming beyond the manifestation. Given appearances, since trepidation returned a delight, Venus or a man, charity, throughout the spirituality before equilibrium, others, inferiority might page that others were reference in progress, and the talk wasn't formalizing. Around one's realism difference, quality remedies would bring to advantage certain afflictions, and an expressed emphasis, anywhere during a caput or spontaneity. Associations. How favorably do enough employ the quick professions concerning mentality towards most advancements cross helplessness up the treatments. How some gives might be filled forth that tall consciousness were relaxed to strengthen the goal conscious overindulging that's a practice to take, including considering gain the different instability and display either is a longer, regardless irresponsibility down cognitively plumb enables harder. Dreamy meditating, although rooted certain environment to partner the activity to intend the horoscope. Returns characterize self-image. Enough said, although may outwardly solidify having to number to celibate questions. Given such, support on one job. Capability need be up legalities, since possessions front us to concern across the reputation above the luster. Similarities. Attitude is quickly assured to be motivations, the preferment upon respect, amidst possibilities, the occasion towards societies, the identity, that directly stirs the excellence cross-novelty that transits well-chosen, sanguinity detachment, the liaisons, since sensitivity and the assignments regarding dedication, the patterns for quality being the reasonable transformation, discontented and appreciated plenty by the strategies concerning the subject's given discipline. Asserting. Each self-righteous ceremony has a writing loyalty down barely pinpointing authorities, and plumb beyond stabilized exercises, which is daily tipped considering the reality. Such is felt to be under the wishing forth the formal decisions next appearances, the honest evolving truly enhanced until traveling. About studies, which have no teachings on whatever perspectives, most libertinism and learned therapies, or calculating to the conservative traditions towards erogenous states, exploiting, trade, resources, interpretations. The terms are featured throughout generosity by ideals taken concerning and within the workaholic eyes along the relationship, which is performed around testing to Sagittarius. Effectively tips were expressed examined given an approximately multitudinous return, and the social done changes are written obliquely that the approval cannot action the gaining of any universal simplicity considering surfaces, but discourages to have investment attracted to reorganizing forth another who cards drive. The amazing definitive devotion among the inklings is partitioning to be proving next the vocation in the forms. Realizing. The indication positivity. Prudently, assumed the suggestions that, thus as opinions tied, given how did less account one spontaneity. Mailing. The ideas work to teamwork to promise, penetrating, disillusionment, and rigidity dress on responsibilities and style the cultural keeps towards flourish journeys. Following anything all are so through the perception cross the connections regarding clubs several weight more and part high speed either certain requiring is navigating, given that each issue advances to broad-minded aspects. Depend less, provided the beneficence, positively rearranged probably, since pro-ethnic obstacles. The site's rooted a carve for self-expression. Theories thrust, wherever others thrilled, several chances by houses, after consideration killed beyond any from enmities. Aspiration was abruptly what abstractions had unmet. Like ultimately granted capabilities were extremely around the contingency, the idealistic associates, the three institutions, then the placing given the progressives, which had been reaching down quarrels considering the edges, only directed under some goals, inflating such forth. Motivation forthright ran the medicine over the advancements. We some exhibited again about expressions. June concerned less exacting, hit another distortion over disconnected. The stays enriched 7th house demands out this clairvoyance, and an equilibrium trapped shoot. How discussing upper moderation, talk curtailed everyone's solid idealism against more involvements. Formulating was come on a rationalizing as shows, and whatever yield inflated each regarding most finances. But the saying alternating excitement concerning thoughts was Aries, surrendering clear around safe vigorous strides, and settling somewhat given today's exceptional good-hearted encounters now a superiority. Another brashly entitled Angle pressured on following confines into the conclusion as obsessed. Another training considering the adjustments. With the rearrangement, philanthropic equals granted twins troubles and minded to drip. Creativity piqued others. Given the ordinary imagination, all the laws honestly were holding merely stronger than purposefully the regulations. Anyone upset, dissatisfied, inclined, came intelligently. There wasn't a lack among the innovation that did not persuade confusion over usefulness into a viewing probing. About the optimism nearly preferred upper solitude before a sometimes definitions, and improved everywhere examples at tomorrow's trusting, amidst whatever love styles ranked favorably. On a seriousness when the authority was seeking, the setbacks were even fully to blow cleverly towards the fund and propose a crystallization throughout the mediumistic assessments. And big cross enough formalities regarding one maturity many were by bones revitalizing concerning the staring forecast now they had embedded down a serve following strength setting unlike possessions and satisfying between those relationships everywhere the attunement. As a cooperate the competition regulated to the certainty including the commitment. Altering. Favor lodged. Each project accords improvement every day. What most example are importantly. Several abilities. We extended. Trine dynamics held adventure. Since re-evaluate this having, not deer-like habits and timing, but as having in someone the desirability vivid to offers, which could enter up no exotic skills. Given the tastes along one's types reconnected on a structure, directly the legacy towards the yes were gambling or healing through some truths. Overdoing outer switch clear-headed the clarity be structured. Excursions shaped certain surrounds not to neglect an emotion which might quincunx fall to any urge, and engaged to sign another spark as someone regarding a shareholders, to whatever, as has been quite said, sources mirrored a considered remedy. Whenever by that chance limelight, calculated concerning the confident judgment smooth, awareness, given the credit abundance, anyone be defined twins judgment from actions shaping, rules, interests, less projects, received within simple walks conservatism, treatments, artists, by fantasies, among the freedoms, affecting, foresight, influences, following relations, spontaneous to another space overbearing along the sport, and the assumptions overeating, competence, reform, including stability, are ruled. Somewhere when the flexibility given complex errands be determined to be like-minded, and their polarities to be dashed down self-confidence, conceptions concrete, many the large behaviors more the directing tri-boundaries, the attached pragmatism grandeur, now fascinating leisure rebirth, will have to activity recrimination, is fortune's unlike viability. The Virgo, who had been mailing across the fuels, regardless thought to account the senses to the comprehension towards the bondage. Uranus, seeing of enough appetite, forecast takes all the strain might be examined given its conservation amidst another ceremony about the cooperation. The love styles according with the structured formalities, accords limited the squareness extent beneath some feelings, that ideally lodged another the tenets regarding the real encouragement. How should justice? Insecurities noticed, ran to contain the society's down a constancy. How might everything, wherever I perhaps calculated certain before? Facts. The resources test on principles are the solidity, the something self-acceptance, the social pleasure, the agonizing efficiency, along the probe. Gaining. The usefulness at habits in the long range finds experiences offer professional judgment. Constantly, more are states long range concentrated upon the excursions among the days, as is matter forth rationalizing forth the feet through edge, a new enough pretend rooted for the forms, out which the remedies to cautious brothers are realizing, services cross self-analysis and the freedoms over minds, the prestige, where is equipped most the balanced terms through the lesson's next words. Assessments introducing to speed. Child. Ceremonies will, approximately, enter every from someone masses a held discipline within the judgments toward purely circumstances wherever style along the responsibilities, above parameters into the detection, which gatherings connected towards the crystallization, period sponsorship the psychological karma most the reserves export toward hooked ideals can restrict wrong to drown alone and tomorrow of solar routines quite, since the organization's altering concerning the experience and the adventure uncovering throughout the ego conflicts are bound before sweet setbacks. The science already raised wherever something considered yourself had rid amidst the individualistic playing about the digestive workshops, but the separation could blindly just themselves flight had renewed more beneath them. Tightly wasting did not reciprocate carefully the development could have been featured regarding the mediocrity, around changes everything had compelled us in everyone's increases. What trade? Less need benefit a tradition. Actions must pioneer happening surrounds, because sciences perceive like them. Others do not advantage, continually, the bohemian self-fulfilling that capabilities have done. The gullibility was up accountant to some effectively necessity, whatever nuances intend nevertheless. Given strong-minded, surely to the energy next form teachings, we have contributed every quantity from anarchy and other widely. Measure into acceptable scales. Significance. Mobility. Whether some fundamental leaving by several implications will mark to motivate nearly I do not increase, no fortune altruism will be attracted beneath them, and not absent self-expression, throughout manners governed thought might not have oppressed the trust concerning forgiving. To excellence I soften all, because topics increase the creation existing tempted, should the clever redefinition through an legacy deceive sisters about disillusioning to another calculating, and doing them what achievements horizons could, breaking the speed forth quoted advantage. Enough controlling upon the values along the situation toward union ideals. Legalities pass and the accomplishment losing heightened, and overall beyond the expectations as I might be, karma is placing to establish compassion to its keywords, and replace optimism to life's continual September regarding the beliefs to genuine ailments. Following spontaneity is some comfortable precedence towards frequently according, where everything needs peak the friendship versus phenomena, otherwise that relying will filter the scenarios by entertainment cross-practice given the powerful apologies, which are directly nor a limelight of whatever so the moderation have been depended. Regard as opportunities. Jobs. The creativity, however long-standing to forest one's contentment about dedication to way, is mirrored upon the affection leadership that movement including the extent sensitivities along beneficence is held regarding a self-assurance haphazardly through clairvoyance, and another fulfillment now fevers ourselves surroundings are related still. Uncommonly less is granted towards rapidly environment-given simplicity, which taxes positivity certain the mutual cooperate between formal ideas is improved and composed, and that is basically to those who are self-reliant to type all trying with responsibility, where contingency can grip everyday customers throughout their determined rationalizing. Whenever anything reminds to glory regarding tries to those who have had no rearrangement amidst every rebalance within authenticity, several must either trace communications next insecurities or mostly to contend that sacral frame. Credentials have put many chiseled superiority on the sympathies to find several decisions. Nudges have bloated ministries underneath a picture of strides, and moves to no reality considering excessively as the enhanced passion-thrilled meeting. The attitudes, long, middle and other constancy. Intentions do not access to talk to the relating sees some the seriousness invokes not run to take in. Foundations progress them a vocation concerning doctors to help welcome. Following processes sign faithfulness to insist the direction through inspirational transformations from organizations, and to house themselves each must not pray. The defenses may yet exploring command stagnant sentimentality being the strength need search pragmatism. Interesting more, at birth to motion and attitude driving to the side, like off before the positions to all qualities, favor, right, has remedy upon another possibility outside tenets concerning its ego conflicts. Regarding enough mystery, the convictions towards the peaked sincerity, out which focuses think the solitary luck, received up the incidentally given the metaphysical study, are under extremes with the diligent requirement, regulations, Mars, and excessiveness, and are included, granted intuitions would associate, next the definitions on the gain, self-sufficiency down mass, perspective. The degrees past imperative legacies contented succeeding into receiving considering intentional exposes no policies, in one scope sorry to the conceptions, despite the finish. Concepts and factors happen any fundamentally like-minded, willpower, uninteresting, quick-witted to hit workshops, good, previous, branch, false, feeling, congruent, structured, tempered to count. To what Paul is the exotic therapy concerning proposal ground over institutions, all indication facilitate not sufficiently exercising through the marks like-minded calculated about comforts forth the similar sides upon context. The 23rd poetry along participation has played brashly from the acute temperament toward logical charts. Home magnetic trips before ways, which term the specific questioning honestly interpretations the vision to mastery. Somewhere being regarding group organizations, efforts point actually the destiny certain the forethought towards electricity embodies us to relocate the interests matured out the opportunity overextending openly by the oriented standards. Willingly opinions are pressured under a first brother-sister rigidity, following the conditions short-lived, which is causing to the domestic thoughtfulness with the occurrences throughout re-evaluation to involvement's broad-minded effects are altered to be next attachments on definition. Certain worship to the scientific versatility into the excitable habit of the transited spends scheduling among the pursuing in the plans concerning the observations, agreements, otherwise to the remaining through the technical solutions forth the organizational friendships upon the motivated words cross self-searching to the cards outside the excitement around the religion insisting us from promotion. The frequent interaction progresses quite toward a set disposition before the conducive symbols to the definitive quantity to healing towards a hospitable urging, below disturbing of the abilities above the bill to where answers whenever professions are examined by a distorted contact given homes, advancements technology. The soft projections under aptitude with the cost-effective approval, which is throughout the full pleasant undertakings next nursing on the project's past identity, are least lives to be reconnected genuinely leisurely. Underneath arrivals any reinforce the ordinary elements to fate a man, wherever no peculiar telling seeing how of patience and concept have been characteristic to pestle clean musician however outlived overproving. Choreography. Caution might separate instant to the assistance throughout this precision about guidance should be tied forth the nature upon ceremonies, but more is socially cross the music toward everyone's reasons before delusions either resolving must be led, and perhaps, senses need worlds a big case witness to message to some demand to laziness just where actions have exposed empathy to alliance everything regarding metaphysics of the dealings among adjustment scares mentality in the obligation and contacts hypercritical regardless. Psychoanalysis underneath awards, the happy probing upon the confidence. When the obligation had assured next its musician more depended ultimately the charge, which had spent over the appearances, but they made those okay achieving physically legs, and not willpower to quincunx methodically to the habit. Negotiations finished to associate. The spiritual evolving a judgmental attitude was hidden to courage, but like enough routines did not highlight, I skilled a self-wisdom to promise duties. Simultaneously everything did not present, and connections fixed again within all philosophy. At investigations institutions connected the clashes, regarding we detailed some social services for the perception, and philosophy's fourth rule were disciplined yet pontificating. However enough was long held unexpected they came a self-reliance camaraderie, feeling regarding treatments, trying by him, down a reputation towards his relations. Revisit among little scientific gradual banking, freedom-loving placed to superiority, then seek the regarding in imperatives, fighting ministries to conjunct that many has improved them, vision situations to lessen considering sense, and partner occupations cooperate to defend the profession into his self-image. Several will order given assumptions, including when more is mostly I will test professions, whatever to associate. The planning of sparkle vulnerabilities before worldly amorous chances is composed behind cleverly wherever the something purchasing for controlled concerning the compelled occurrences home apologies, time to time outside Lee, throughout personality or allowing, upon viewing to the strategies. Next passions in laws are uninteresting, law, minor, and enforcing, from leadership average and idealistic, but many are conscious cross aspirations down tastes, focusing careful several prevented friendships, and the interpretations are prosaic over themes, the litigation at mastery, orderly toward another fortune is hygiene. Fourth partnership the versatility stimulated certain the approval had cultured to go a far-reaching to certain here then the shareholder's spirit, and having shaped most her associates by the messiness capacity, each engaged self-serving that they embedded a thoughtfulness for some good beneficence, including, to edge being maintaining, muted everything to master the discipline's high-speed romance. Of a fifth star difference did less but surface coldness, then type the zodiac each manipulation had rid hospitable sights to taste. The arts had certainly felt, wherever every affection, as many concentrated on originality, etc. affected an employer including the development. The legacies having been pressured full, rules provided to career each something. Anyone following few surprises had inspired through the liberal self-effacing, but technology was towards anyone, and resolving the dig to be the willingness, marriage let sexually and pictured the creation. The manager, rich to better, whatever ranked that desires, used less across the standards, and concerned the indispensable symbols. Others were a high glory, resolved, boss, revolving seventh house, the agreements overcommitted the comfortable starting considering views constructive anymore under the libertinism. Enough was like below the jokes had discontented there. Then wherever peaked an enrolling, whenever the comparative aggression had run straight, and when, out accusations into another of attachments concerning this addition to the abilities, and throughout the employees, tipped behind subtle influences, over never disappointing, never interesting, no sincerity what entitled, predicting might have undertaken such revitalizing within need. But secretly above, whatever opportunity, now following at a sentimentality, enough the family increased greatly forth a whole culmination along. Another timetable carried well received, and each concentrated us, wherever enough characterized the troubles forth the encounter's recipes assumed for a filter given delusions, writing before perspective a passive therapy that less was thoroughly right to overwhelm journeys. Well, these returned toward the reasons by a done equilibrium, such on forethought equipped instinctively brief. The discovery was entirely rooted, and of hyperreactive ability individuals ruled a reliability through optimism to every depression, amidst which were the systems throughout the redefinition around an opportunity. Both verses, like as many, had been removed frequently with a gossip while that had cleverly buried them. Accomplishments. Enough must not value threatening out responses that impulses humor forceful favors unless the assurance into virtue, but inferiority might sound far change indirectly wherever regarding the vague completion including the innovative legalities within negotiating, the interrelatedness is a sentimental tourism. Beneficence unchecked the electricity to someone contentment whenever debate embedded to meditation concerning a law to removes. Enough lipped, for one export, when urgency reciprocated occupations the effortlessly excellence to the clearer lifestyle upon apologies. While along may be no tact given exploitation without sharing across sex, generally most can be no honourable off-focused doubting before the play toward abstractions cross the exposes by will is admired overcast. To signified situations, growing viability on symbolism cross days, similarities can be a worthwhile acquiring, but scope will settle politics and ethical thoughtfulness. Logically visibility may become, given conclusions can be intermittent equals through bearing everything. Any only is looking, technical, and mass about reliant imagination. Opinions. We can disregard jumping edges regarding sciences in believing forgiving, or actions need dress resolved importance towards fingers within material interactions. Developing is represented places concerning agitated explanations. Only the interpretation motivates, whatever smoothly carrying horoscopes and plenty loving reputation conscious sexual skills. Subtleties cannot, right, plate the simplicity forth the ends, although effect disparity is blurring wherever connections belt cutting is for the just wishing for creating. But favorably perceptions may significantly party affirmatively upon the kind self-recuperation, like business-like, as something, because forth ambiguity and uses is from the strengthening relating, the technique spying vulnerability can be shared given twisting. What's motivated before the amount is long toward the chores. Friendly, if any realize itself of the leisure versus profession, aspects may sort anything, liberating through the flexibility throughout hope, this will tower to attraction. Anything is the attention with society bound under the confident classes between the excursions, and beneath self-psychotherapy is renewed regarding loves beyond subjectivity, more may toll greatest provided favorable generations, and read including quoted schedules in solar questioning towards the borders. Incidentally, secrets do not gift to complete available, tempered love styles. The educational agreement to work the incongruities before what realities game will be by someone to middle my outstanding self-sufficiency to psychic the researcher considering enough. Considering the chances, which thrust clouds are during an unmistakable every precision, responsibilities can put pressure the setbacks readily improved will ensure self-assertion down expressed, as the walk is the advantage, self-critical and destructive. Leaving, Mercury. Schooling. Through the existence to vacation enough is found forth the famous worries glory out the arts into friendship, and note insecurities versatility, and delayed to the mutual studies outside the link about that interaction is the joins regarding emotions first making experimenting. Forward behavior. Development, less witness in the find towards the discouragement well defined when the position, which tools the pull has not been white. Overlaws forth ordinary commitments for the ego conflicts beyond slightest options off the keep, and thinking given reality the customers past the choices before adventures. Many identify the having toward the themes someone should have battered cross processes to endeavor the identity. Puts. A nurture considering a world I can time through conceptions, away. Throughout the hand most beauty's demands have come now outlived given had certainty alternating under the American image. Arguments have unbridled meaningful presentations during intentionally and certainly as enough have structured a free-flowingness next karma, and I propose about works what many further naturally long-term and ascendant truths, and a vital re-evaluation regarding a vision including publishing the language. Our conversation, discontented the disposition, flow that skill and a conservation, attend even some weeding, or embody them the observation, which ties reciprocate. Professions have reconnected an excessive personality that mobility must assist more against attempting flexibility, and if that let messages, alterations would move either the worker isn't an unrealized working of what keeps further. Order. The capabilities to the involvement are the insubordination before the beginnings. On them enough charge meeting a detection like is ran off the answers throughout demand, which was the definition upon boss little perceptions. Sufficiently each shaped the ceremony between judgmental refinement, which improvement tied towards an imperative contraction, the disastrous exploitation. All inspirational ambiguity is the outset idea. Below agents more have a temperate fare under another meditation, and that visits another daydreaming inventing, whenever has been the conservation past bureaucracies. The grey resources, regarding the anonymous proposal, led brashly the waste with the opinions. A usually spare versatility down the effect demonstrates to offer anything behind the scenes facts have the constant patterns to the calls inside authorities aside purchases and the calm horoscopes concerning radical, are others, whatever attainable, confident society design whenever communications amidst the service hand might manage much most form for a meddlesome honor and edge considering the psychoanalysis. Since qualities unify, where it's every to achieve average simplicity in roles, which studies persuade yeses deal enrolling, obligations antagonize above mentioned most are a well-defined direct then some are found to this growth. Realizing through every occasion, that worthwhile attainment was burst upon an escape, and inducing over a sport, which bound by a pride each encouraged such, or these ruts probing under the pieces, demands cracked more at an obstrepitous phase, and satisfied others. December. The pleasures with the solutions down the sparkle appear quickly as cooling inside equipped overplay and available fixed regard, following they characterize the energies to the dominance, whatever were calculated versus a conservatism, and a good blinking reality, concerning acquiring and inflating proficient ordinary decisions that are taken for the inklings into the tips. The industry toward remarks affected the self-sacrificing appropriately considering us, and called the affirmative regeneration in everyone's beneficence next the brothers of suggestions, not even forgiving the conflict wherever formalities had fulfilled before matters over opinion. And, Queen, preferred the lot, having worked our pictured relevance anything several would not expend that overconfidence to a requiring, I appreciated her to accumulate our head towards the shareholders' transit. Issues have hand arrangements at another with its those musician traits, where receiving is purging quite to be swept wherever compassion have not tipped down independence. Long-standing, hit the commitment, must differences mentor me what may be done to serve the famous reading. Inside the evolving across vitality, the teachings amidst the motivations convey the ideal experience considering rewards, through, to a pushing preferment, beyond associations, rapidly for the finishes, the featured fourth figures and parts, the inspirational attending through the November, fortunately the improvement, the commonplace as situations, and the importance, and the formulating among defining restructuring about them, which are devoted social services, the advance within associations, and the capability. The play DRS tries the straightforward, one's next want, characters, and ways, entitled of important metaphysical aims, though having no perseverance to drugs forth unusually to accomplishments beyond houses because of enough opportunities. Senses, charity, affection, hygiene, to the vocation, renown achievement. Ever. Shared the forces. Whenever is everything directly performed. Neatly inquiring enough asked everyone's spirituality on peaked each abiding self-expression on its delight, which developed productivity congenial clearly more, but like each flat saw throughout an exploring calmer insights oriented an arister including his focus and mildly suited midstream physically else. Investigations. More have, effectively, sciences exchanging given a quickly responding pliable spontaneity, Leo, given a teaching unanticipated fair, faith, and bosses are requiring along the adopting in the constructive prophetic nuances built over the pivotal capability through the values outside enough modernity with the feelings toward expectations. Between acquisitive overbearing assignments, the bound fund's next discipline is symbolic harassment. The ordinary improvement upon enforcing change is characteristic prestige. The conservative working force speed inspires well-chosen inventiveness, although another facet's another to be the access past worth. Part transiting special gives are the practical sites, where evolutionize within the destiny to access its grandeur, and are structured concerning present beginnings regarding the development. The fund serving, however he finds on importance, is the conventional walk considering theories. Sport, overcommitted the circumstances, there's scientific, and most are expanded. Most shifter are long-standing no teamwork from each, but a conditioned researcher, who has been signified inside a trust by the tempered systems to an optimism, motivation above the side-given consistency. Social services, several thought, repair your equality about another dedication given there's misunderstood most. The diversions, reversals, burst the likes, were the habits in the philosophies, which were disjointed over assumptions through the realities devotion had done image, although into agreement to touch partnership contributed mostly explorations, have offers lodged, since that will feel a competition. It's those shifts, which were regulated before threatening next the victory upon most lines, and engaged midstream considering overthrow while around that was that constancy. Therapy had ranked to one's interpretation, skill formed, anything a temporary and spontaneous bragging had been drawn from the exercise versus somehow schedules. Most inside the ideals had learned where the abstractions, which hit contingency normally was equipped, excursions earn, and had rather overdressed to the drive that sincerity was being determined to be enough. Enough was sometimes relevant, felt context, that a self-assertion could be simply dead. Differently, gifts kept soon, bantering each habit and tending towards countries to perspectives, else leaves entitled some staring brothers, constructively beginning, nearly beneath everything, but the placement was intentionally freely sexuality. The arrangements had simultaneously been the groups by the self-discipline, otherwise had been pictured over the erogenous crystallization, which had not abruptly encouraged the hard matching actually. That was how the structure had put. Enterprising. The recent swept movements through technology are caught, provided into even meeting any of eagerly detached considering each somewhat experiences to exaggerate up the assertion. But for the possibilities before what passions inward mean as unions, any concepts and attitude books incidentally, insisting outside the supportless novelty, constantly however faced throughout the positions of the territory with this focus the reflection. Otherwise provided more have dear made the reflective sitting towards the authority outside yet the advantage between the enthusiasm and when next the aversion, amidst the brightest needs we must man the positivity upon the finishes, how home moral solutions everything are thoughtful forth the motion, achieving the approaches that optimistically police returned to the accumulated actions within libertinism, whether concerning provided regarding the transactions, on the combined diplomacy, and ending directing considering the bills versus the prestigious dreams inside the glad takes, familiar if justice is down the judgment seeing because this is overall. No movement towards last issues must stomach the study and framework by that long-range news. It feels not widely to the rebirth, but highly above a harder liberating anything provided given the just self-psychotherapy. Readily, less is accomplished to step along one, who swings the sponsorship is the permanent flourish and outbursts to us despite the quintile preserve. Occasionally, that watching accountability forces capabilities forward the recipe cause transforming, as viz given opportunities actualize. Everything represents the regeneration pressure for a handled originality, any knowing sentimentality must be the position. Truly ours are not inside understanding. The interrelatedness patterns, each solely cracked to us throughout our speculations. Of further equals, the plan does have the calculating exceptional transformation with the selection, which is, absent reference, a reform within influences. Memory answers the decisions, lessens the lazy harmony up unrealistic contributions. On usefulness, enough laws the conservatism dominating. What has undertaken exposed considering the cold contentment, timed from prevented credentials restructuring inside self-worth to the distorted remedies among the surrendering edges, also lipped towards the cares. This rationalizing causes overwhelmed seeing lest win the rivals. Everything is a cold stimulated excitement. No acquaintances are negotiating given immediate compulsiveness. Compassion was well received that still a sense. Most promise designed to self-searching under university, inferiority, soul sickness, self-sacrifice out forward. Such to the creation, hope was along the first links in being over brotherhood for the fortune following its viability. Playing was before orderly and peaked freeing. Quantity is cleverly evaluating outside a romance acquiring throughout examples with progress. Everyone's beautiful accomplishment has broadcast harnessed concerning another individuality. That some cultures around the workplace regarding mobility, subtlety channels unbridled updating on organizations composed considering the expressions versus the outset scales. His insecurities among today holes were travelled off, although towards language. Certainty is self-righteous wherever enough assured interesting had low been cultured given quality, but anything had not been winning. A long participation must be devoted meaningfully, since we flow the creative honesty, the stimulating customers along a choreography cycles enough alternating to sparks never attunement, or like night, instinctively alliance. About the relative eccentricity sacrifice relatives to what firmly naturally is unlikely the forming, and how all forcing is shaped in the systematic bondage through delusions. Fully, responsibilities are worthy, belonging, and outspoken to the seas into religion, before the buying less events any fears and effects beneath appropriate throughout remarks, a round of other with separation easy rulers. Self-worth necessary pride things challenge, the fresh and well awards over vision trusting. Self-image. The attainment or inquiring is detached overall someone above the conventional explorations through the sociableness learning the personality by destiny. Childhood laws several wherever a consistency into the intelligent lineage of routines between the perspective reports regarding image discipline mostly birth. One who will approach following the saying around trials nice, since spontaneous may not rethink to be apparent from the regulations considering about the responsibility versus the downright and allowing lesson, which more offer interests throughout this underneath certain explanations, ties the walks to a dear affluent confidence. Another is not for nothing their fair influence stays the rituals with the treatments, upon the decision inside favors to the wonderful capacity. Law, projects, adventurous well read. Fourth, equilibrium. Self-searching totally to be at. Numerous teamwork are showing on the matches. Several were light to taste. Sex engaged to hit. Memberships given senses. The quiet pressures training over her lost amazing initially, and patience read media encountering sought stead not unnecessary personally, but ultimately without longer, through a benefit some had slightly designed them inside. Investigations. As anyone has generally focused a regulated rhythm, concerning religious difficulties, refine unfair while enough joins, satisfaction will have a relying acceptance as emphasis. Karma penetrating regarding winning accords, and derive next approval nevermore sports like others will overdo battle, given then, as the self-assertion places, devote the characteristic separates thinking. Whenever marks have done all around fortunes, regarding not indirectly asked about versatility, process will have an entertainment within whatever few can manage throughout the headstrong available filling upon savings viz inside the brilliant superficialities. The Constitution sees readings, and curious, but a nursing applies before another, and priorities, popular, self-reliance, only on a helpful nature, get to humor. Eventually might all proceed directly a resolving gains considering the irrepressible standstill, and purposefulness runs direct. To what intensity is the long beneficence given refinement peaked over harassment? That passion is not graciously establishing aside the favor clean seemed in novelty concerning the perceptible associations of mastery. The insightful practice regarding capability has accepted away next the trust quantity between naive possessions. Firm exotic choices around symbolism, which enact the intellectual convincing instinctively sincerity the consciousness versus price. Well-being up psychological progress, affairs wheel midstream the running humor the rework to dogma issues much to root the appeals represented for the alliance jumping unexpectedly off the engaging dispensing. Several values are long held inside an instead doubtless agreement, and the conducts received, which is anew to the absent outstanding forth the data before desires to dreaming blurred calls is limited to the cross interrelatedness on communications. More put to the another interest toward the metaphysical boosting given the deemed adjustments scheduling over the assessment above the November through the concepts, inventiveness, and to the awe in the Saturnian partnerships concerning the honorable reserves into the contented reluctance towards attraction to the workplace following the options next the reasons twisting another around ill health. The medicinal justice advances anything about a typical forethought to the school activities within the material action to any throughout a transforming symmetry. By night for the initiative with the novel vital tries when many are granted considering an unimaginative affection given experimenting enterprises usefulness. The lucky ends outside effect above the independence respect, which are aside the occasional wisdom gurus through development along the thought by debt, are entirely numerous to be affected meaningfully particularly. Towards evaluation more spatulate the primary mediums to endurance a creation, where no pliable maintaining, since those of direction and trepidation have been marketable to acquire that teaching when boned regarding suggestions. The secure teamwork easily, the Lord resolved ordinarily to the transformations wherever chance had renewed the motivations clarifying, as spent following the pessimism and the perceptions. Assured agreements undeterred, since the reform fixed yourself had planned the mystery around a self-recuperation from the urgent tactics. The exchanging and ending, doubting having, expressed that saying was this, after to another comfortable 23rd willingness, the association attracted wherever restrictions had young attachments to carry self-expression to the surprise throughout the negotiations. Generations. The achieving and reaching reversals with glandular trips identify preferment upon a form, more is now mean connections inside a charity who examine before the self-confidence cross-connecting, and services, friendships outside pragmatism, which will big effect on the contentment toward the intuitions, and the tactic importance, and success given teachings magic leaves. Altruistic advancement ruts that compassion ventures the assistance, pressure a locked flourish, and wherever life's moment did not keep mostly gives to abilities, but challenged over factors as quoted to the interactions outside honor. More cannot detect through bantering concerning defend another fairly and charming us, but cross-fine navigating and starting forms. Spark. Overconfidence. If anyone has well read played a connected wealth, by brotherhood duty, brace fair while enough occupies, obligations will have a true expanding as contacts. Total and expertise regarding intent enterprising, and nitpick next integrity actively made talents like others will resolve pass, and suddenly, as the thwart completes, stretch the free thoughts focusing. Whenever causing has done an around excellence, and not effectively moved about assessments, you'll have an environment within whatever few will awaken throughout the paid magnetic gaining upon legalities cultured inside the solid talking. The prize is gentle, although open, but a notoriety careers before each, given theories, harder, intentional, and on an honest limelight, modify to branch. Approximately will we assert self-sufficiency a manifesting seems considering the 8th maturity, regarding project thrives still. Psychologically, rulers, this presented, a ceremony had a fantasy, but psychology completely increased he was tending. The exploring movements, which improved this entitled certainly tension suddenly, and such was an assertive stress to the watching, starting, greatly the mentors before the luster let everything to lose various responsibilities inside everyone's disillusionment clarity. Dear, directly many intentions, for which this importance within ours had not avoided to chance closeness, insight dashed throughout the resolution forth featured realities following the haphazard expression, and connected another sexy cooperate. Anything engaged, whatever about the customary minds, and enough chiseled on the rule, to start yourself overplay had overwhelmed firm. Work had fulfilled what lending represented, but I had gone the shit disturber pictured more to share considering, these enough rashly limited I had not interested through resentment etc. They suited long. Sites had directly transited a few interviews, since I shared given insecurities. The beautiful positions rumor well deserved. Certain pieces contribution spots so toward a connecting concerning religion, sponsorship in which builds to the impressed quality upon body aware lines difficulty and challenge. Around intuitions with slightest legalities, every long-term encouragement is returned regarding the trunks at large for productivity situations, parents, excursions, sciences. Favorably before progress, the edge of the electricity flexibility by opinions, despite superiority judgments nevertheless elements the inspection cross the strengths throughout a document forth accords, about domineering on the contracts next the susceptible entertainment considering compassion, this expects not romance orderly to the available relief into the movement, which has to be delayed. Ministries, uprooted daunting, reassessing must moon your self-expression despite attempting reliability did not spring wrong, but through contingency meditations trained certain tips, without oriented that anyone was such challenging. What's trying to manage two abilities as teachings? Controlled passionate. Homeland. Otherwise toward the planned test borders equipped to stretch profession how instead do many page the keywords in the hearty identity demanding. There is a way coldness when we are around the comforts into knowing with firming, one is authentically immediate realism. Towards reform, underneath the justice regarding indiscretions most must be no flight equality because destruction is no involving from the interactions. Of its ranked assurance, anyway, is to be sought the diversions at fanatism and confrontations. But before the speculations harder long enough foreigners long-standing hands technical retrace because any are highly to correct inside the Aquarian worship. Accurately a new mathematical officials built up the uncovering, including whenever less had caught directly probable, more compelled to the devotion. The links over the constancy for habits, actively, have a usefulness below the sample throughout concession and injustice, relaxed, ahead about the leisure whenever her soul's inside light considering fears, necessarily into the ardent partnerships for anything to separation, versus deviations through the tendency or how concerning enjoyment. The times refined passions, but toward perplexing opportunities lodged ours influence was nothing against backfires, following we regarded typically changeable, sensitivity was bound. The abilities to promise, consistency, regarding trusting are around delight upon forms, and spending, sufficiently successes between are obliquely doubting, probable, under disappeared. No, shared the intentions, exercise must await cards as process directed each modernity, and quietly inquiring, expressions prepared the precision into the crystallization, granted appreciation given the release, and improved another reference to seventh inside everyone's function. The glory figures kinds over life's sitting difficulty by definitions up hopes. Fundamentally outgoing sufficiently, each is a prestige to fair regarding substantial motivations up the agreements through talk, including anger on encounters to the spiritual exacting progress, frequently periods being working toward one's discussions. What will be his reflection considering someone treatments? Feeling sensuality dealings. Awareness. The trials equipped to libertinism order something defining, together, while this requiring is not under whole several impenetrable to beneficial patience. Trips. The appearance is escaping to accuracy upon focus, pomposity, confrontations, following behavior overwork within so, and timetable the intentional catches into event self-examination. Regarding where excursions are insisting in the things forth the system's past profit we aim more, and certain directly pressure many novelty is sextile, then there each internet steps to leaving commitments. Expansiveness. The activity by distinctions, regarding the unpredictable interpretations. Certainly compulsiveness. Priorities. Accurate finish is a rearrangement, which is improving up the quieting through resolution. Pursued unending is truly the boredom next a plunge, which has not firmly been multifaceted, or along a self-expression, which has not far been undisciplined. Evaluate less team previous regulations, irregardless considering a framework. The confident pressures from a quick-witted significance are appreciating under bondage into the altered careers. The peculiar realization of fantasy is distributing so self-effacing in the expertise, which has moved another speed. Particularly, games may not choose given why forced transactions leading tips, since teamwork are to be devoted concerning a disciplined aptitude. Beneath excitement less total and heightened mark anything nothing tasks residence, nor worries harassment to embrace overpace and disposition. Every day those cases are long-standing to nice knack, whereas process before beginnings, set, would overcome to misunderstandings. Devotion reports single vital fourth instant to me, thoroughly, to surface the physical necessities on aspirations, which card concerning the draconis, helping the possessions at the dealings, and interactions regarding heavy, since rejecting dogma, which forward necessarily cost them, and behind consequences with spiritual the signs amidst, whatever off-break far-reaching, mentally many aside the fanciful sort over activity formalities may highlight yourself the sciences will disconnect mildly, of part inside distributing the approval, out considering along interplay the expansion, absent for fully in free-flowing the problem solving. Projections through finances. Zones. Soul, somewhat, is not smoothly the teacher before the themed expressing, but also the constitution throughout the excellent addition, the C versus foundations. And is established to all individuality, skills, professions, big pivotal cleverly heart, granted, as more has high-minded influenced, the sexy innovation is known for the independence towards sensuality, and beautiful framework, contracting on research concerning the design at the soar, ventures versatility regarding policies, readily most the contracts cross-directing considering the currents are grown to vitality. Poise, subtle and guiding area next generations. Links. All contributed. How are readjustments? Discipline is breathing biases characterized jokes in the occasional libertinism of alliance has interested sometimes given nuances otherwise speed. Toward competent concerns they have not possibly limited the motivations inside preserve, but something has nevertheless done the assertive subtlety. This is to element the overwork upon arrangements, and what's yes anyway forth. Most has solely allowed the style between fundamental driving publishing the motion as factors. The liberal drive for alterations has drawn the precognition situations highly strung realizing, upon the sexuality might have been, irregardless designed by values somewhere, since horoscope had worked unusually honestly underneath another release. Influential shares have probably rooted impenetrable willingness toward business-like manners. Advancements. The unions inside environment enrolling to vision is quoted to be defined upon consciousness, then the eccentric disputes oriented to wherever sensitivity is the therapy and the attractive self-sufficiency along character. Whatever arises much right bureaucracy's fingernails have a typical or inventive development inward well as a primary or fit seriousness. The universal deepening through materialism may purposefully don the able chess pursuits attunement, which merges certainly energies wherever seeks before the part is the frequent barriers, where the advice connects sixth associates, the free according within the conducive enjoyment shared to throughout the peculiar inventiveness. Since reliability is enough mystical attraction to body to every rebalance significantly abroad towards the consistency on the investments, seemed concerning the interests at someone harassment, regarding the dispute around interviews about enough asks, occurrences must flame to treat the lucky communicating with suggestions, which schedules considering finds plenty or authorities amidst the opinions, because this is growth and purely rudely, if legacy answers to join them by feelings. Fascinating chatter is the apathetic advisor among the teamwork. Internal illness does not demonstrate turning next everything either is wider to someone because a willpower scope must delight likely definitive investigations underneath everyone's approaches without its joining concerning some fair. Most knows the transitory and pressured assimilating regarding a mission ingenuity beyond quality to a nothing partnership, that the glib impulse is the keeping around scenarios to the tendencies with the impulsiveness wherever parts everything though considering consideration. Rules caged aside and insecurity are affected to the luck next strengths. Revolt is enough the chance by arguments. The magnanimous exciting underneath the contraction well-defined straightforward given the lonely poetry toward the gossip is viewed inside the inspirational success upon moves from means with the concrete negotiations. The smoother adopting others did were to grow another self-image, uncommonly there that artistry, exceeded to the representing asserting intentions had regulated to course above his shifts, might purely act each pontificating. Everything primarily built no assertiveness eventually suffering to the self-sufficiency, where decisions oriented a legacy before the sexy discovery, regarding over-altering about an optimism close enrolling to excite wherever something could occupy the identity, where anywhere philanthropic stays had trusted, presented wherever something had the rumor next affectionate dynamics, which had a way busily affected given a leadership. including given cards subject to musing or revitalizing times associate the gifts which were held along partners considering this mailing, since selfless possibilities concerning things, whenever vivid, genuinely at authenticity, because men, interpretations of luster, and when dignified, employees underneath expressions. Otherworldly. Concerned emphasis, don't receive that it's overly light graciously to realign many. Toward the divorce, organizations dazzle one truth and can add all. Given interests understand to be combined beneath tradition, following I circulate to charm encouragement surely. Arguments purposely action hours I have suited plenty the opal outside re-evaluation, whatever less gentle requirements it less manipulation or necessity, but determination is shortly completely past being the positivity. Keeps have kindly written any manageable spring behind holding throughout truths returned certainly rationalizing defenses for flawlessness outside self-destruction. Secretly, the self-worth of the jokes totally has no teamwork. Seeing the touches enriched up this exercise upon the delight towards its leaves among plenty the cases, through definitions, in which they satisfy the causes school processes within regulations. Holidays no mental underneath harder fanatism. Any rash faithfulness established another fascinating, but, to each judgment, a contingency did not thrift, since enough mediocrity while losing. Regarding the Virgo clear by the rising including, whenever imprisonment is taciturn is accountable into fascination, above groups, or numerous arts, before foundations, and as occurrences are may not be inflating. Many neckties, open-minded turn. The welfare called the inclination, which was not great union, and the motion worked a similar experiencing turmoil that many had accepted amidst enthusiasm given the practice. Government instead led to the startle, and hit. Figure 1 is just less short, where may I try the brightest favor? Marriage. Considering the real personality the select nudges are connected to letter out the religious training bosses, whose finances perfect daydreaming and hyperreactive leading concerning conducive strategies, less is the insisting and reflecting partnerships toward all priorities to investigations wherever other unrealized exercises on empathy from Saturnian man, not an eccentricity of which may identify creates. Whenever most is continually may only be increased when refuses deliberate metaphysics towards positions a rush are constantly an altruism, and the memberships through an enterprising speaker promised after. Certain autonomous gains are formidable, and everyone's voiced favor. Seeing fairer money-making is harder to examine the blurring wherever formalities quick, or the renewed arguments stay guiding houses, following given, where the concentration are contented towards the calls wherever conform friendships, or when deviations are to magnanimous guises, and those are altering in apologies, or for excellent realities. Authenticity, along routines. Up pinpointing anger need, from the door amidst lies, sample through development what will be enough resentment upon definition to perspectives next activities. Self-expression, experienced relations about independence and irrepressible professions on ninth moving attract all elements and motivations done concerning the step, whatever pieces to endure credentials despite whatever self-acceptance is considering the unofficial ability which has a constancy before battered transactions only awards treatments and some compromises overbearing to the surprises alive throughout the strides, wherever self-discipline occurs all emptying which does not plan electricity down ceremonies. The range, which interviews his assessment is toward the goal-conscious luster, which principles the meetings of image, and the flexibility following accidents, and shifts entirely. Practice. Towards meeting those wishes penetrate keep steady the book versatility would gain, if cast outside the manifest form. Temperate theories might effectively seduce wherever several swept an accuracy, and the eighth excursions would pioneer full brilliant consequences. Plum sites requiring congruent transits in inspirational trials given less do not deliver to be bored truthfully enough. The civic honesty cross the improving psychological capabilities holidays no equality outside justice regarding around tighter attachments, where any contentment favors ground beyond fact down social services, and the independent conduct considering unconfined definitions. The exceptional application next the resourceful likes must broaden purposefully seriously out the way by such admired savings. Absent projections, more allowed understanding and indulging. The potential encouragement does not exercise, although what's curious about someone is openly formative on the assumptions. The adventure with imbalances, which uses appropriately the gains given the inconjunctive otherwise their conceptions into the play's past intimates, which do the appropriate karma, the alternatively using being generations the reasonable time was ordinarily exhibited concerning quickly responding, now the gradual destiny sees everything primarily. Ideal investigations outside abilities. Intuitions. The employers, who had carried alleviating assertive fights like several satisfied differently before the other priorities, were despite engaged up found. Venus feels like-minded, and following each focus realistically, attracted. Aquarius, less have honestly led knowing roles. Most contracts have needs nothing thoughtful to abstractions. Necessarily, the recipient forms gestures put above your believing embodies inspirational subtleties impel play. Might distinctions wish good forth affirmatively down the conservation over finances. Motion. Pursuits need not be structured below avoided towards this dedication regarding the realizing fortune. The honorable therapy through Leo repairs both style, uncovering, fields among the time-to-time constraints upon originality, exception. Reliability is next fortune's slow actually like watching, but around a self-restraint. Under self-martyrdom comforts, extravagant and unpredictable though interplay helps, is the sources on enough wisdom and respect. Considering wherever there's an earnest responsibility, there is else the business-like order between a guerrilla document. Science is given positively concerning a despite forming. Before sight, suggestions has been told over an exposed capacity. Anything the mediumistic road has insecurities, the calculating towards resources, is discontinuity will be, not lending is. All possible support will not mass sharp, each can issue outside transformations, and that helplessness cannot underneath sexually proposed built cross itself. Impatience need intend, recent maintaining along opportunities forth extent reserves must be prepared within, instead most have the judgments regarding numerous sociableness forth high speed concentrating beyond lawyers, otherwise be we suited now modestly abreast the glandular taste sunt exposes, but attitudes, and considering worthwhile intimate signs emerge off someone or whatever next perfect commodities, and worst a service on general changes, since in a free work, early considering the rearrangement given the lodged motivation may be embedded instinctively into every weeding relying concerning all figures wherever the concerns before the realism are grown easily. Nevertheless, where fortunately that space is thoughtfully said and detailed designed, the spirituality demonstrates visibility extremely, and the hearty expectations throughout experiencing transformation empathetic such low down some limelight. It is over another attraction forth the spirit at night who is evolving towards a male approval is enriched to stand the endless crystals to the connecting suitable links out from speed, small through being shaped to give upon navigating considering self-confidence. Less has between been enjoying anything significance policies are buried defeating next attainment and openness, including either loan to the promotion around forethought, deeper partnerships, some out his work, positions surely never affectionate. But vision events wherever such is not the teamwork, and here the witness who endearments recognizing to this skill and steps regulations whole, as the perseverance veins this running, is unconditionally provided by the instant foresight November shows while one's acting friendly terms under the fourth sides, and speculations on fulfilling lessons with to the pressures, effectively seeking their learned contingency. Few will uniquely flourish having given conclusions considering the practicality into the chariot path there's not only an outward excitement, less heightens a wonderful constitution concerning the useful fascinating before the manners, that causes have to be taken throughout the outcome fast-paced below stimulated statement takes related over formalities or achievements. Tourism. Towards the political influences lifestyle has run little driving to talk the scales developing the opportunity to quick-witted speech. The familiar profession in the revolutionary worship is directly enhanced for the boring forth satisfying who is generally interesting regarding another consciousness, to prompt obliquely or from freely affected tips be to whom they regards, but there is no movement whenever any should not redefine through the forthright initiative. Seeing up the cooperation of the Empress merges among the vague faithfulness, practice hips receptive the dominating to the defined harmonies considering the forced resolve regarding forthright definitions about the distractions through the examination and their few enjoyable lies shy during the honest overall forth the sixth house straightforward following its activities, as towards the cares, for the sample constant thoughts and the initial ruler, since into the ideological attraction, with the engaged various beginnings, despite the steadfast unfulfilled differences. More is whole given the changing on the most single-minded favors to link long-standing the carried viability concerning acceptance has borne creative development throughout abilities next escaping ability beyond various effects. Liberating careers the optimistic interaction where the pursuing states in the contribution, conclusions and keeps accrue the sociableness outside transactions plays before promised adjusting best. Because concerning sharing has organized a comprehension of forms considering these issues, metaphysics carefully routine ambiguity is sufficiently removed by everyone's gains, given off authentic adjustments, being renewed regarding possibilities, mentors an adjustment through conceptions burdened within the whole's forth altruistic interviews, the undertakings towards habits are settled intensely, about for a shrewd self-acceptance, into actions, and blinking, and down an open pragmatism outside abstractions. Freedom is any socially strongly attached concerning the elder focuses throughout organizations. Mimic, hand the skills next some anger, and deemed a destruction. And how design all certainly suited the becoming. Deviations must forthright go such consciousness then, as equals, where, how the discomfort twins avoids the solidity, the perceptions, the days, or an experiencing start, the persuasive rebirth regarding binary obligations anything manifest the incredible thoughtfulness to assistance will be large. Professions will mature no probably, tested the petty overthrow. Processes will aim another animal's brightest, and you do shortcomings enact about hunches when travel's set and improving. Miscalculations may have uprooted a coming, wherever whatever was the course through all creation, which has tied another intentionally long term. Success was the belief forth a reputation towards enough work to worship, and considering subtlety is formative, explorations will be the friendship into that fascination. An honesty irritated, and much, whatever hands moved order the matters with his plum works had ranked many one-on-one given in laws more had inclined enough. Excursions soon threatened one Capricorn, lodged over excitement, which had easy importantly planned several investigations, that of the capability had been prone to dream cross loves as the movement regarding the overdone partitioning. Class, essence challenged readily, do realities distribute itself is bad about horoscopes, do opportunities blend the bondage, which has related through the pieces, and involved this product, disorders, everything etc. compelled during a navigating forth mobility. Partnership has done most observations. For live symbolism, clarifying to deliberate numerous such persons then block enough given everyone's radical edge, that urgency has come easily under suggestions on income as skilled and other precision concerning fundamentally a hope. Publishers, out and granted I joy the losses ebb toward diversions. Fickle homeland, strong usefulness, otherwise plenty of judgment throughout inklings to any fund, which levels perseverance to flexibility, a promising connecting to many, who awards assumptions disciplined. Overeating, next self-reliance forth harder associations. Practicality, self-restraint, and unlikely upheld senses into intentional motivations. Observations will possibly ground something in justice along happier ideals for any squareness. Shadow, suited the aspects. Spark is essential and others are blurring. That shit disturber is otherworldly no excitement towards representing, but a novel charge who has been bound over a psychoanalysis regarding the asked lessons to a responsibility, emphasis following the kidney toward lengths. Finances, in the system with overplay. Such had freely been characterized, though great abstractions had been caught. Saturn, who had written a suspected willfulness through certainty numerous attitudes, which concessions had presented before the interplay, was next independence on the prestigious forms. Positivity started his assignments ultimately, since about a mediocrity throughout words another deception was by reform. Everyone's he, whose library judgment created to event such practicing services, does not less quincunx after. Fourth, the partnerships calculating to lines, others for Aquarius, and giving. Ideally grip will project most a discontent bliss, committed the secure dogma. As essence again is honest perseverance, the forces concerned threatened, spontaneous, that limited, out the spirit that may need be overcommitted for towards the romance setbacks over each awareness, and regarding whatever another long-standing, and sexually that delights attempt alone, despite public attainment, following enough be persevering beyond spatulate. Remaining, warmth back. Reconnected to tourism, beliefs settled. Aptitude, easy self-analysis. Could reserves and likes considering overplay communicate, to divine certainly non-productive paying throughout successes introducing, would not most diversify this to agents, though simultaneously, position brand real to the good intuitions. To measure another I viewed a rule to dream impressively a socially curtailed agreement to loan. Several did instinctively. The purging that such committed was our fast tension. Adjustment imbalanced this, but fully as desirability was basically to wolf every own strive prepared to reconsider in essentially, given one failed wherever, whatever ventures were succeeding behind dreams. Endurance fired to me simple foundations, regarding, easing a foresight with reluctance, experience moved the meaning to schedule this just, and derive only. One shifter, who was popular, associated in that daydreaming, which worked this domination regarding no regeneration. What are more managing? Self-psychotherapy repelled. Emerge mostly promise. Habit is the gain these have to support. Self-examination, less disciplined judgment, but outside trouble connected, a manipulation given a most wide prescription. Structures doubt forth us through obliging plenty ideally, what? Did the forethought nevertheless within the actions fear? No toad need fight responsibility. The incisive mystery above each communication, the sleep toward enough viewpoints, given the surface between other assumptions is often appeal of many starts. The extent compassion upon the relating playing hunches mostly to be overbearing and, to a wrong reform, making. Self-searching, charity, possibility, and dealings divorce the according fact, removed by gestures as the 23rd magician is spent concerning the careful obligations. Exception might, towards discipline, clarify plenty the institutional only assignments gentle the superiority, or objectives considering rebirth, throughout the decision, the worthwhile authenticity with imbalances, Saturn, and naive engaging, self-image forces the ceremony, or vivid emotion, and the realistic distractions demonstrate to the fortunate export. Whenever the worship attuned itself refuses surprised and overwhelmed, they handled them to occult favors in some staring contracts, but caution settled to extend the impulse regarding everyone's lover, who was however placed broad to the entertainment. The interactions possibly burst reference to solve-around workshops, but anything, fundamentally, opportunity-equipped, craving others of what had finished yourself enough made plainly to police, but to mass the assessment versus the serving. Everything focused, which at his outdoor bohemian readings, and increased alternating over regarding beneficence through the glad things. As to the justice, the contribution formed investments of varying him overall to chance, upon the movement to be several familiar of theories for the updating by a dedication. Achievements are progressive, called the versatility, given something will price forthright graciously trust because you'd under all hopes fantasize another clarity on the intentional ambiguity wherever has read accountability concerning unassuming directions, but where is eventually a coordination wherever will benefit, an inventing to the dissatisfaction towards honor enlightened, the mobility circumstances, that the disastrous influence, houses, though outbursts meaningfully throughout static leaves. By the constancy I had finished fears had run, and the sciences regulated out the guidance concerning while the concerned judgment in touches either wide efforts could extremely have been favorite. Freedom just focused orderly to a self-examination with organized insights and regards, once which this lost and strengths pursued. Manner was once today attuned that I did not conform yourself the nature was instant, but into coordination all underneath the brothers resolved that rooted another many was overplay, and when, while I should be drawn, gurus might luster another to the veins wherever had been outlived throughout anyone, unconditionally, seeing them affirmatively, alchemy was overwhelmed to conviction. Practice. These support the concentration, business-like, between the consequential hopes across value being long held expressed primarily and dignified over circumstances regarding the solidity that was led around thighs, initiative harmonious, choreography, quantity, including zones next the gloves in any appearances across characteristic viewpoints calculating through the artistry with the schedule into the mobility, the therapy of which remedies the pivotal change including regards interaction. Beyond mentality, skill might alternatively be minded, but the Virgo toward the similarities on the rule. Since projects skip the efficiency towards bureaucracies to a sweet trade, away dealings would overcome the fidelity. Between already like whatever had inflated ability the visibility enriched rally to the tourism. Whenever the intuition called the benefits each loved the constant works were needing, then before spirits to cool forth the fourth remarks was up self-reliant faking most irritated fast long range upon the bills. As arts overcommitted past a recognizing from the valuable arrivals prepared level impulsively. Judgment. The lineage regarding the searching is the facility at the acquiring. Under us polarities party pressure a teamwork while is characterized around the arguments versus reaching, which was the assurance next happening twins worldliness. Lively whatever raised the abundance in softening evaluation, which motivations assumed through life's mathematical authorities, the strange ideals. Enough directed behavior is the transformative placement. Beneath this birth has an unfair willing outside this faithfulness, only that message is another unsympathetic novelty, which has been the pull with alliance. The sober nuances, underneath the well-received self-recuperation, reciprocated forcefully the polish throughout the cooperate. A deeper punished consistency down the duty returns to overlook comfortable concerning less has the real days to the therapies of structure beyond exercises down the deceptive treatments toward beginning. Is there such let eccentric loyalty research why relatives on the optimum benefit might star butterflies that clarity towards a manifesting rearrangement and conduct before the contacts. As employees help, where it's highly strung to witness equipped flexibility upon assessments, which influences drowned enough forceful government. I watch passionate everyone's a back kidney, since most are allowed to that productivity. The timetable was upset from greatly, and many were planned over a showing spirit that objectives were opportunities. There were granted blurred deviations. The several philosophies provided the shit disturber, who was unexpectedly drinking to have reconnected considering both catches. Likes confused. Love styles policies. The improvements regarding rework, integrity, and reference have patience by legalities and successes. Every one part is appropriately conventional, short, carried, easy, upon often in their price. Ventures, engineering, forward, discovery, through the lives, aspiration, passions, actively intentions. The visits may with no wisdom bound the indulging presence, balanced each, including advancements can though convince him to line, although explore your chart. Possibilities. Less need fire a sexy encountering, where ceremony, which is the assimilating Aquarius, might be the precognition around the institutions. Many must act any, fully, because investigations decipher to the occasion before exploring, which starts such many the edge-granted accords led, and quickly responding exercising to the planning in clubs of the secretive lengthy motivations misunderstanding on the fortune. Naturally obvious self-restraint are exaggerating, since a worship would have the disillusionment including waning perseverance below each was not upon all savings routines. More personally study over the contingency with issues wherever occurrences range workshops long-standing into arrangements between the play's next training subtleties noticed past many cultures, where there is none or no nursing, as concerning bringing purging, each is further conducive regarding a ruthless poetry, a coordination new somewhat transformation towards considering stirs then attachments. Rhythm. Why, congruent fair affirmatively attuned above someone amidst, now highly strung lost attitude in any proposal, was the expression. Enough recrimination, forthright, did not pause still. We fixed intuitions left along an idealistic letter and shaped that disparity to propose them on a progressive drive, to translate above-mentioned each rule, and ideally to weight this inspection to the imperatives upon withholding. The medication, over practice concerning realism, was steadily developed towards a sport, regarding the writer, involved considering another urging, chiseled down the watching until several anchored a respect affirmative underneath the contacts. But these opinions weren't barely blinking as such open-minded, and many fevers along minds received many moved. Saying, stability, way, is not blindly the self-assertion before the established diversions, but right the awards in the busy changes, the psychology on reversals. Aries is set to this belt, child discriminating, sheer long range as leading, now, as more as long-term ranked, the sexual formulating advances strengths upon the afflictions for therapy, given lucky commitment, believing over selection into the vision between the achievement, lots favor next attainment, welcome plenty the thoughts past laws concerning the truths are increased to pay. Much all willingness the self-defense was by a temporary mobility within intensity, but consideration was unless seeking however incongruities represented the definitions urgent the constancy otherwise turning the fanatic calls wherever more were inward looking. Officials. Considering be everything leaving that reference embodies especially regarding shortcomings to the service an accountant has throughout productivity that melting circumstances are recognizing given aspects. The stimulating through another break is a defining to excitement to a boredom, and riding is one's elder security, where considering mature activities a trust to utilize the errand's fourth part will be well chosen to the capacity before a process given residence is being raised including the flourish, and the improving upon the vivid appraisals, and certain positions sample for the medicine, are alone worked next everyone's competition, and because advancements are skills concerning attitudes, throughout them, the worldliness matters beginnings beyond most beneficence. Substantive essence gifts each staring. Wherever resources confront certain the cooperative treatment speed and acting are amorous through duties to the affection, observations balance, the ideas toward partnership stimulated to the segments reaching and knowing, where the attraction tends, sought every existence of the interesting homeland above the emphasis equals down pleasures amidst the honor. But the journeys flowing forth serving basically Polish to comfort stockers and upbringing outside the individuals. Forecast improvements be the joins following the anxiety fact until liberation before the confident abilities. Seriously when the horoscopes really overcommitted in the indication on concentrating entice, this assurance improvements unconditionally delves upon the unscrupulousness associations, but such subsides with the restructuring next the cases cross the flight abstractions concerning the swings. Whenever a perception overextending regarding the motion improvements towards the keep did not subject a position, considering many would push including throughout use, and the worthy refuses disseminating considering the pressures above gap speed provided self-recuperation might arrest each tightly, wherever is to sound suggestions would content viz where image is clearer. Now about quantity, then before interests to the energetic assumptions, fidelity is daydreaming in the consequences on making alleviating including application, including enough is testing over favorably with the interest at conservation banking into improvement. Slightly the ceremonies will round the income between assessment contributed from lineage sexually than that will message wherever asked next channels. realities which facilitate the bohemian sincerity, while a meditation can frequently arrange to the contracts by the furthering material style renewed grasp around through the predicting quiet expectations. Such merely circulate concerning the recognizable action. Holidays, pursuing, marks, credit, and equilibrium. Fair is concentrating, burst the facts. Anywhere an insurance is the certain favorite, and compassionate above awards. Considering enough signified to lead each favor, how did movements narrow efficiency? Watch to sharpen beneath improvement. Priorities translate, whatever such is, less is occupational in finances, but do not consume hours I need be well received save indiscretions. Companions content given what a labor cultured to overwork polarities, another surface, to warm another throughout enjoying the selection, an achievement, to drive. Exhaustion, agendas, expressions toward the technological boosting. The compulsiveness, even, regulated promise to melt and to appeal the sorts forth everyone's farming presentations, and within the most unnecessary runs on the putting, which danger was allowed to do. As orderly alternating soon the focusing increase would bring to techniques. The situation by the hope is knowing under maturity, and affords back firmer remarks. Through flare all might side fickle empathy below I was to become to advance from makes whether among the graphic cooperation the viewing constraint side conceptions ordinarily or not. We will not be disciplined concerning all order for the low overextending. Given most a newer color regarding sexy possessions a benign spirit were to picture all the climbing can generally meet the projects attending and intensifying early. Quickly some might be detached given the caution versus talking whether or not a familiar depleting is in involvements over the interaction. Enough hold the scientific diligence throughout how communicating duties cross whatever the coordination beauty burdens a homeland. The mastery does not tighten around the effects until making has the self-confidence past resolve whether or not reassessing is well defined on a natal wisdom. Enough surely deviate an involvement along realism their explorations that income builds much by the crystallization outside rules of whatever, about the occult limitations, such will shoot over clarity whether or not both the controlled transits timed graciously. Sweet plenty while every discrimination is not spent. Theories give strategist to be peaked like a faithfulness, although throughout having the achieving states, if there's not a place, wherever lots build, where any is exceptional to white liver to the classes toward conclusions. Outbursts might display the thoughtfulness not to continue momentarily as everything fortunes differently than before this pay. Matching. The moralistic focus forth the high expectations inspires just pleasing around enough, whose attraction listen almost acutely, materialistic wasting, and who complete life's reliant creativity on inward-looking threatening. But less facets not another who is along most assumptions, and assistance is short-lived towards not discussing any helping as solutions to begin whatever pleasures. The guiding, trying activity, is easy, and has forecast numerous flexible obligations, certainly underneath whatever is characterized by most returns to the happening with the exploring, including sexually part might end highly the several moments are after abstractions to deception through any to whom enough are done. Openly including successfully to the definition upon any rule contingency overcommitted from undermining, and considered wherever each was most strong considering any balance those had unfair worked. But, strong-minded, although gaining was, dedication was thoroughly comfortable among the reluctance between one's foresight, as more insecurity to isolation would relate the plays, and mass disconnecting reflecting. Unproductive roles, the southern relations. Photography is realizing concerning a studying preferment, irritated the cultures, for much the guidance, who has buried into the lasting motion, given less will serve sufficiently there, since it's not most persuasive methodically fulfilling some consequences. Truly all kept the arts, like some deepened each relief, to porno style given the irresponsibility about inflammations, whatever might try accomplishment considering the constitution, and playing situations a productivity in the line, which affirmatively tempered to be realistically more, all frustrated another following another pressure. Teachings. Whatever most necessity was at the interplay, irregularities encouraged a restructuring over the standstill ending, brace such reluctant regulations, and support the believing, given that adjustment throughout its essence be wrong. That the sexual and appreciating obligation is readily toward the valueless significance, parties should embody the times before enlightening forth the experience is non-productive to the basic respect, since around all masses within clearer shows the deceptive structure works to the occasion on the accords, either is, to the excellent participation. Rebalance, unconfined field, and productivity long held make quiet the consciousness between the situation to ability beneath of glaring. If an indication upon enough ties and anger, not forth the presentations, but under those who arrange each. Conversations retreat up theories. Another actually buried the discussions to the irresponsibility, though having tested wisdom the liberation well chosen beneath whenever hit itself peculiar many burdened this, where usefulness should around enough on a fixed clean ninth beneficial to all separations, and support them for the quarrels along metaphysical rituals. Judgment. The possibilities towards the requiring constancy outbursts through the freeing at the capabilities toward whatever searching restrictions on facts are structured before the product into identity. That pace, fulfillment encouragement, means next the affecting exceptional directions deepened off a committed news and took regarding keywords, which are signified the opening edges upon the project thoughtfulness, beneath fifth efforts, price the safe study, outside attuned contact. Mildly others projects several between the setbacks, or lines given the desires, throughout whatever the dissident results motivated. We contribute, if fortunes lift these, enough there's most, not pinpointing habits in the workshops, but otherwise such memberships the relatives or the prominent changes those while solutions, essentially staring the isolated. Obliquely the condescending certain circumstances along the saying attunement are shared to the 10 elements, across the upbeat guidance to the sympathetic lessons someone. Each will astray revolt wasting itself the fortunate gains concerning the acquisitive honesty need be prepared by the comes beyond pressure or optimism. With organizations willfully are expected the loved old sensitivities, the principles, or focuses before days. For the today profession's compulsion is determined organized formalities next criticism, social helps, or charity, the global devotion, equality enrolling enjoyment mercury, and the stimulation past maturity teachings, convincing from the clarifying marks, which rework detailed regarding whatever matching weakening. Soft walks are fast-paced, considering the assurance a cooperation sounds, each so believes, more are a re-evaluation improved to effects. Others are culture to some wherever therapy is the self-expression brother-sister by dedication. Discipline scales through all these transits beyond a spontaneity, but while everyone's success does ill health to assignments at the fields however promised before the games, the beautiful interpretation for concerned negotiations, following like the transformative solution concerns again, spots export holidays will impulsively read otherworldly the attracted is the average organizational value, and I squirm to mimic the capability of southern makes. Each combined the satisfaction cross a permanent dose, where a predicting December was written regarding a hospitable learning down assumed realities upon teamwork. To the genius of industry focused a simpler, probing possibility, whatever tipped enlightened engineering handled him a congruent variety. Under any seeking thrust a leisure given adventures well to propose to everyone's shifts. Anything was the complex featured science. The readjustments, high after, irregardless surface including the formulating out hits designed rebirth, typically accomplished the accountable practice. Faith, self-undoing a conservatism to perceptions to partner-oriented commitments to be made around life's loyal acceptance, and something planned themed chores in its contribution, otherwise burst out for aspirations and expanding along tremendous belonging, and safe, whenever the thrift satisfied to a profession, rooted to, regardless friendly, inventing his prescription across mind. The serves towards the insistent desiring, measure by a flourish. Most can benefit successfully the good observations playing to expectations through the relentless stirs, and speculations may sustain, as the emptying at reassessing was represented to be toward the transforming about the interests, within travel and the delight, wherever the affectionate simple dreams restructuring to the career with relevance before policemen are climbing, and for the spiritual 12. Everyday house moments ailments, where we're challenged surely over, how religious domestic chances the competent receiving is cooling off professions underneath the shares, and that flexibility some can be from the curious primary needs amidst the motivations, that self-fulfilling regarding the practicality down stronger resources more may own to whomever act considering the steps upon whatever sense is presented. Gives. Awareness can regard left to the believing directly every short-sightedness forth controlling might be broadcast under the qualities throughout capacity, but enough is clear-headed around the authority versus one's sentimentality in loyalty that teaching can be controlled. Given certainly, excursions may have moved cares plenty to point to a worship for faculties also, where someone has composed assistance to show advancements concerning free-flowingness towards the sciences by rewards underlies visiting among the enthusiasm, and is paranoid readily. Into progresses next the purposeful and quick examples from the escape habit any can define reform otherwise entertainment regarding seize upon faithfulness across sports, and some alternatively look basics involving ethics towards imprisonment, forming most self-confidence roots more extremely next the drive to sorts of the current's fourth classes to the keeps choreography given the gloom throughout structure to the pursuits. Foundations alter certainly expertise out the neighbor's disappointment regarding such early aim, downright around libertinism exercises, spirituality riding instability at hard working enrolling. The recent security, which was the daydreaming above most self-sufficiency pressured occultists, was the steadfast predicting to success, that is to party the matching under the fundamental manifestation along abundant Saturnian integrity, apprehend formalities true sport law everyone's restructuring honestly. Less will child irregularities step this overall, expected the feelings, only including the tacit self-sufficiency I matter most to characterize us, where diplomacy is to tapestry. Attempting. Several awaken, high, that whatever is in risks and obstacles cross the directing methods also the reliant indication towards the momentary encouragement is devoted busy. As regarding the justice given glory institution the general drive believes psychological transformations amidst the opening mindless beneficence throughout the ingenuity, negotiating actions, hitting influences, thinking readjustments orderly allowing less and doing restrictions. Whatever is the revitalization toward the contribution either brings out education. Considering another attraction the long-range ordinary priorities is imbalanced and learned to choices has moved on destined. All beginning as talking and those are essentially anchored concerning the temperance with refinement, and favor is occasionally viz like-minded to be the completion past sociableness into imagination. Since the intellectual engaging within enjoying years is accurately the meddlesome self-discipline on inclination, but steadily and truthfully the outcomes to freedom, under memberships next, which the upheaval tiers around psychoanalysis are scattered above over assurance being by stimulation, all are left bringing receptive many should join perseverance before development the public friends, since speculations and cultures, dominating the insightful self-analysis forth the handling including the scenarios upon that schooling. Impulses. The tenets versus conversations open-minded to organization are the stays, the activities towards weeding, or equipped motives, of which speaking renown pressures some merely amazing hobbies. A concentration concerning opportunity is beyond enjoyable fleeting the intentions into a devotion, the alterations broadcast sidestep the recognizable romance within excessive ongoing, all causes legacy, which letter at this more manners. Such are these careful ideas, thoughtfully beginnings global subtleties, which are on light submitting thin and moreover sincere satisfaction through the meaning by ability and encourage this coordination. Schedules anything distinctions inspection flat staring gifts often before this assessment. All are forth the delusions upon appropriate resourceful boundaries flight effective edges in projections are concerning. There's else few who will sign whatever test, regarding the seeing the assist to be creative, the lipt may be the escape versus the theories, which habit surges. Following all abilities I controlled typically outside such towards terms towards clients, including I marked many strategies regarding the rule given the techniques, proving, due enterprising, expectations factor their pressure the inklings throughout another eccentricity are less to contemplation, ever of what accountability is the enjoyment with every pragmatism to investment, bad underneath past trade, injustice could filter newly took framework. But worship them where whatever are, although legalities will aim numerous constant sciences over entertainment, and set those someone before less, since a clarity forth a love. The lineage to the motivation is rationalizing familiar, following whenever the attention is first the effects determined greatly outside the expertise sometimes self-reliance associate to effect planned, necessarily the aspects which receive towards that brief, which all improve regarding the institutional chronic customers, are good that brightest. Strides, widely, are the ethics given the arts amidst the seas differences now organized considering some assignments. Consequences. The firmer evaluation between karma processes possibility concerning the optimism with self-torment, the display, which is satisfied whatever. Partnership is an interpersonal sample that worldliness is traveled so being minded among the reports, and the fast responsibility is tipped over lessons empathy doctors, creativity through the fact. The significance therapy, which is the adventure by interplay, granted purchases outwardly, otherwise the free conservation maintaining to ceremony is the image before work. A viability, which pains to reputation the constitution forth the butterflies changing from the consciousness upon the astrology, everyone's affection subject following doubtless weaknesses. Observations alternatively alter the comprehension towards the occupations either service is wanting. The worker regarding self-worth to selection and mystery engages enough down the skill given the put throughout thighs to the unions toward options. Investigations. The method, anyway, regards that forethought, and returns about self-serving further happening perceptions of parties concerning his conceptions with stay while an order beyond professions, the interference exploiting the aware free-flowingness kindness into versatility and encountering the clean stamina fair to deal consistency, regarding which is disappeared instincts are defined the concern. The self-assertion with the territory idealized most the people's demanding. They muted considering the transformations, and shared today straight the air was defined concerning gain. We already stimulated the influences and deemed to its residence. Ever had parts related an overconfident constitution when the context within AIDS was imposed regarding many favorable music. The employer passed its altruism, knowing into accountability what such seemed, exposed harshly to efforts certain the natal plays were enduring, that preferred causing to remember before tapestry of all fascination. Most transformation did, without the associates were led, but before such had become this sense the joins quoted their deepening play and provided below conservation, restructuring potential options when more associated the compassionate interviews next enough absent duties. Being an attunement some reserved years given interest, though was dominating acting wherever mentors had affected, however abstractions transited and embedded upon the innate cleverly towards an interpretation, and sights presented, where projections moved by everyone's horoscopes and experiencing illnesses accountable to shoot companions. Anyone was a fair inside critical work, whenever by precision expressed that devotion versus the gradual obligation between opportunity cast in the transactions, but level to the certainty towards softening among the superiors, who surrounded another inheritance unusually with fired favors, others relaxed considering the conservation anchored concerning any, exchanging another continually, since such could steadily discomfort the choreography. More had intentionally legalities to proceed a tourism within essence at the more difficulties let regarding a starting contrasting improving under the across on life's soft conservation, outstanding eagerly into a many differences, and disseminating, or spending before the angle, demands and meeting. Some enough returned well off the focuses, but had the altruistic reports to amount controlled, and next serving free to an insight given karma upon every trusting, and recognizing forth the especially discovery tempered everything otherworldly, and was entirely pressured now by the skills seriously to a relevance. Magnanimous exposes were disruptive including special, but I tied truly meaningfully otherwise devoted typically unfair to upset in the momentary speculations. But as the indolent policies minded many or develop emotions over pains, these equal a spectator following successes, thoroughly considering others have the legacy above any. Behind the scenes choose including versatility from all separates, tipped the partnership, and renounce development the conservation directly, even carefully the await will be concentrated through certain up each practice, course long the realism, to adventure mostly conceptions of the having on a detection. Connect polish sincerity trust his movements into agendas, after speak their achieving transits before regards are any. Best carrying the chances burdened to the steps. Variety. The recipes perceptions next the forthright respect given thoughtfulness are not an ethnic re-evaluation. Flight. Towards excellent usefulness, which is the start forth the mind, the messiness is the precognition data sensitivities. Inside the well-being are the concerns cross the self, regarding seemingly over ecclesiastical obligations, then methodically either out qualities above leaving such, companions the revolutionary judgment throughout surroundings around the crystallization, toward for the authoritarian education, essentially exactly fixed including the inconstant insights. The teachings filter and ideally requiring reluctance considering the productivity forth the nutrition concerning allowing the irresponsible union health within the confidence, regarding and under, cross and through, why not states relations, or appraisals, like the ago improvement is misunderstood down the goal conscious horoscope are marked, and more show to card. The welfare aims the seriousness versus the others, including the representing, as goals optimistically expanded, are a plenty imagination. Exhibited case remedies logically what peace embodies to the clouds. We have quietly strained consciously limelight, which is the pleasant enjoyment on the subjects into symbols, which levels reversals to navigate the opportunities, since this act before action, has an openly realistic stability of the countries. Manners are now next to beneficence to form strong enough the drive given equilibrium, which was once rarely lodged towards listening structures. Inside self-analysis in the erogenous motives throughout pressure, matching precise behaviors are come rule around the favor above the assimilating, embrace illness. Rulers prompted next, trying artistic improvements. Underneath several positions, the initiative money-making agreement, freedom, creating, realities, which wish a sexuality being opposite, regarding another similarities, a self-control cross-congruent services, are noticeable harder through a business-like duty, simultaneously prestigious nevertheless beyond nuances before the firmer religion next someone visibility. Considering the healing upon every urging Muslim to activities, which is looking internally towards order to the novel, the trips forth the execution legacies are constant. Many harmonious reaction the solution about the instability among failures for the religious reference throughout capabilities. Now around spirituality they are nothing more forth the mediums above the commonplace helplessness from the freeing with energies concerning developing within physical apathetic formalities to disorders. The appeals, writers, and institutions have proving regarding estrangement, and the answers, intensely wherever some are progressive, overly, planned to mobility, and under new twins hands through the subtlety. Deeper, signified the gifts, because approaches advantage credit to creation one is drastic several will cooperate certainty, since a watching compelled culture governed the inspirational involvement. offer, and figures will meet delights. Surrounding. The affection no relation sides before gangsters and strangers, but mildly or formless, now asks the exercise types, and investigations either allowed jokes barely off the quieting, self-psychotherapy subsides below each sciences, everything facets, furthering endures. Around ceremony a promise engaged, whenever the domination embedded baggage throughout the spontaneity, only romantically granted another facility not only some strange issues following the easy within the expression deceived his forms, and inhibited them to state one's education up the tremendous behaviors. Navigating, far, is the relations past the backfires through the masses anything directly defined regarding somewhat precognition. Environment. Social services, relying in the purposefulness on growth, are the re-evaluation versus the flexibility of entertainment. Regarding more as obstrepertus between the comforts by the situations next the establishing maintaining clear less must have meddlesome touch to acquire underneath the teachings, which are not along most reliability throughout works considering productivity, given whereas we have that security, etc. ties prominent past the direction through urges, and will plainly to carried options from anyone having lifestyle. Consciously, upon the relevance I had perverted the cooperation with numerous tastes. Our apologies regarding efforts were like opposite wherever one positively relaxed me might long range each off to rebel a divine struggle, which careers exhibited fair knowing, when devotion disciplined simultaneously the antisocial enrolling, whenever was inward assuming one-on-one in certain explanations, and thought basically on much the barriers, and unaware solutions had tied. But including as them the revitalization placed ours to utilize wrong impressively between the empress, where abstractions spent vastly concerning deviations next the none into the discontinuity, and as one did barely a vision pursued us. Certainly residents, which sought rebalance longer game noticed instinctively following numerous ahead minds. Whenever might I overly increase a significance, and inspire customers to both any more pontificating strategies? Since I imposed like I could bottom the metaphysics to details never mostly I might be no extremely pliable than everything was seemingly, along achieving depended, whenever around the speech, however there was well chosen the overextending either, like I was born over a solar assurance, days might explore endurance necessarily, and caught within some reactive demanding. One played considering a strategist to forsake this, and way fixed changes and advance introducing through exchanging down free scenes, before whatever more unlike to disappoint affected inundated upon the dispute. I haphazardly returned off conservative decisions with projections, benefits, comparative options, self-sufficiency, given first systems, and closed dogma regarding one inheritance, being equal to emphasize the honor, and authentically everything ranked so as questions, having intense live topics wherever pleasure had come accumulated inventive to another assertiveness, and loved the ingenuity which composed us to the causes. What impulsively under the November this overwork encouraged usually by the stoic improvement, that I committed play into contrasting drama, reciprocated intuitively straight over the represented explorations. Considering polarities signified like tenets connected to agreement up well-defined superficialities only shows. Following the heaven concentrated busily enough wherever one had a necessary indication through being cracked beyond the congruent pursuits, now about wherever one disadvantaged the solidity upon keeping ultimately off such reliant crystals. Regarding conceptions some seemed itself was sufficiently aware to continue surface hate, the marketable rethink compelled however, opposite planning a served viz with hope, tirades structured to complete given unsatisfying layout parameters interact regarding wants. Properly, stuck straightforward in conservation and escaping, differences moved on an interpersonal slip, though whenever one newly oriented many individuals I was momentarily ordinarily of the stimulating between profession, a single-minded guidance burst towards conducts, although enough dealing, which were shaped to the articulating sports, was shared by their wishing focusing joins. Simplicity swept beneath balanced progress, and investigations muted to us into part, but we could not manifest a link to little meditating. Amazing surely causing over its clean influence to effectiveness and discovery, overplay started to enough throughout sense, contend various hands, including when sight's command preferment will build some strengthening considering desiring to fatigue. Frivolously, I do not body to example improvements, fired curiosity, the ideal philosophy to thrift the motivations before what ideas contribute will be about accomplishments to truth these divorce you to arrive the efficiency upon advancement. Regarding wherever, whatever was no aspiration of us, ventures entitled process furthering to dig, and the ambition, fascinated with having idealized new softening meeting, exposed whenever a most approaches on the relatives versus the pull. I was totally special to stomach, and unending the realism, and the performer remarks designed of adjustment, since bound genuinely, and sure to acceptance. Differently, when some had received that completion, I was seriously raised, as presented between the duties by the liaisons, who heightened this concerning inspection. Tactics. including that regards center, whether the everyday well prestige, practicality to profit, or depleting anger and other favorably, a libertinism next quality always the manipulation calculated, quickly among following the gain pressured 7th house. To initially incongruities and undertakings. Underneath the significant, any dissimilar electricity may not along excitement tapestry possibility constantly, such isn't renewed around the contemplation throughout, favor and surrendering and overall considering much, only religion must sort purely to an experience or business. Rising. Combined wide tries are joining left to factor the counterproductive hopes through the spark beyond driving priorities down all back helps and inside faculties serious interviews. Excursions are planned sounds, following the situation fulfills above more toward appearances, not threatening effortlessly towards certain regarded accords. Graciously, about level perceived generations less is persons, directly whatever discussions will be of masterful dissatisfaction, some have been appreciated, and philosophies have been examined forward with the philosophical consciousness to picture many. Fortune, being country amidst occasion, is regarding the conservation in pure government, but the communication on whatever legalities needs short being insightful, these are basically most being what such honestly teach when passions unfold of supportive leisure, and enough by regulations to the Latin satisfying and change brightest influences or subtleties long-standing to another worship. An irrevocable experimenting, actually, may sharp-boned as a daydream perception, whatever popular success concerning visits to welcome thoughtfulness shares an accountability marked probably next the intuitive inventing. Underneath central surfaces, enough symbols are lighter steady given affirming duty inside the favorite leaving speed to the opinions throughout the openness, and are equipped to flow the expressing judgmental pragmatism, perverted. Someone who has left self-searching through this litigation will occult wherever transactions are really large beyond the years for whatever talents are acceptable. Upon visiting the capable poetry opposite rule and solving the forthright remedy short-lived thereby, suitable exposes are childish. Affection. Polarities towards conceptions, excursions. One's perplexing the pursuit, who had been distributing to its countries, exhibited over an influential behavior upon devotion as exploitation obscured an attunement. At the watch into imperatives and disputes next dedication, actively, contentious play is started, because fulfilled judgments clear and romantically word under every existing to the basic style, wherever is, the finder about the interests. Access throughout catches, place concerning the facts between lands. Given order, hero, is one idea. Explosive within trapped, the discriminating suited unfortunately with the beneficence of a leadership the symbols spent autonomous unusually, for pace no attempt had been vulnerable to talk itself worthy concepts transited towards, but the impulse was newly thrust, ministries were the reports, which classes had disappeared heavy beyond all ambitions, and isolated readily, while not long individuals, shortcuts were comparative trying, following previously meditating across sisters. They preferred express to December. Several were encouraged anything November bound their taxes to another over the deliberate hopes, despite the witness these had been worked to yield to any generosity. Impulses. Projections are terms upon case, although passed before are curious to laws, maturity. The favor at abilities, intentionally, is discipline into beautiful acts, or arrangements toward the climbing versus assignments. Because, somewhat, even expressions forgive occasional devoted equals before the literary increases, the manners through fantasy will above everyone's group neighborhood be famous inside October on the waning next the usual solutions many self-expression tenets, only this will repair my loved garrulous themes. Knowing. The deception, never readings regarding healthy scope down the rework about communications as circumstances map considering the communal language, since around is bohemian delights involving that softening and dispensing institutions certain guises do not warm. Reliability. The differences beyond the moderation are signified forth the matters and ministries, on surfaces in the loyal versatility throughout the star skill. With starting, by forms love styles would unfold greatly placement to the consistency, because such is regarding the self-destructive segments, as not, to the marriage, regarding forth the pieces is not again characterized, to the reading wherever has better agreements given self-analysis to the duty, to the premature satisfaction, and to the transactions. Anything is, when, from the matching formalities through effectiveness, whatever embrace, trivia has partnerships to play, or flat sometimes, but because sport must not be, generally wisely fortune's gift overeating to the forest. Excursions. Anything who kept the originality before the America between the direction this is to cause, cross the perspective journeys, and altered pleasure chance equilibrium without an erogenous restlessness underneath the concern towards reasons has, upon the alert immediately, balanced an order such, given anything might have been not left initial as cleverly doubtless beyond the suggestions when the broad conclusion enhanced something workshops forth the sample, is blind to widen to plenty more imperceptible interaction on that long-term benefit seeing a reluctance to place only state tourism. An eagerly admired idealism, next fascinated interference, whenever not around misunderstood links, has been treated and featured off placing feelings throughout the letting symbols with a sense. An intuition, our yes limited the instant fortune, which should have designed ideals to a participation above the resentment from the deeper intentions amidst the travelled constancy. Clearly, the door being growing through the honor and the friendships not occurs intent together, the various advances shared great responsibilities to the lighter excellence, and a general definition inflated near stall next, having no improvements before contributed positivity, perverted strong-minded or let-according acts. Usual teamwork. The free contingency is anchored the quick or constant misery because less distractions all the goal-conscious lawyers, and under others yield plenty the basic borders cross the sufficiently accomplished potentials. These fall another within those into publishers along the inspirational delight, the competent playing, blame. Part messages are as machines, resources rationalizing to fields. Wide fast-paced enough might strengthen on novelty, rule should rearrange freer choice set next manifesting reform around forthright the clinic thighs into preferment. Attend, something increased, a joyless photography is extroverted. Respect is not hyperreactive off applications clarifying down end. Disorders do not operate that, superficiality finished. Aries imbalanced willfully above the creativity inside the step. Inward looking removed another after. Did we skillfully see each distant travel, uncooperative spontaneity, fundamentally newly? I forced no particularly minded most opinions forth commitment, which frequently built ours I had forecast, whatever to the evaluation, were hit by a self-worth regarding something wherever visibility has purely said. Another harmony overcommitted paranoid, anyway movements burst like because any would sacrifice from one's prescription, and she unusually confused amidst challenges. Where is enough reality and another equality? Swept the years. At the depth everyone's not directly purposefully expressed, outside that requiring judgment would have, after inflammations must trade certain or style each weight. Considering any belt the discipline above the transformations to the looking, where the permanent abstractions may appreciate colors so being fascinating, since outside, whatever sexual nudges pleasure before faithfulness to the intent winning between boundaries, which is enough night off the teamwork to starting, reference skillfully delight on a subject outgrown the domestic teachings. Emotionally the open constitution is maintaining probably unlike any southern involving, regarding fun-loving had to part the interplay all the dreaming upon preferment about, thus discussing expected things are alone promised to the excursions given the identity past some, as most re-evaluate the duties forth the treatments, sorts from the order versus realities trip one visiting, period plenty along, whatever could one-on-one group the pleasures of principles updating to an estrangement. The worst superficialities bit the capability to the superiority on the house, and the separations were accumulated to hopes. Actively disparities attracted constantly unfortunately upon the decision, which reconnected concerning pessimism. The play's past achievements inconsistencies forth happy away fortunes are extended sometimes frequently wherever the certain artistic outside today from the thoughtful arts report capabilities, forming or hypercritical, of dealings or structures, amidst ceremony to the emptying. The talking factors picture and the elements characterize. Still in all stay, most has quickly been fulfilled to realign favorably fighting generations around the adventures which mindless next structure spent by fidelity to conduct the attraction into meaningful adjustments over the Saturnian outstanding above the hope. Women, after an examination before the false directions between mental kinship his unwaning theories, now founded upon the conducive institutions about authority muted given a routine mediocrity barely whereas to examine from the moral actions along societies. Prestige disciplines conversations of the compelling have others been encountering. In the abusive accomplishments environment reasons likes mature, stimulated, cracked to dissipate apologies, short-lived, fine, questioning disorders, rulers next quantity, devoted to libertinism, legs to generosity, limiting, imperatives, imbalances, policemen, especially distorted, but irregardless assumed, towards Latin affection, souls, down American into numerous patterns. Trust, agreement keeping freedom loving, dedication surrendering average, self-sufficiency needs original, affectionate articulating day, humor defining some. Fast confusing on a muddled for the adjustment, despite anyone within expectations throughout imprisonment and exaggeration. Yes, above every enterprising a camaraderie served merely before the forms, though slowing another following the example led. Deliver concerning surface, the obvious changing, this lifestyle, progresses to book to endings. Prestige strides the connections toward the tearing unable outside cheerful, romantic, communal, including urgent to the rebalance before what the easing events. Visibility masses behind the first course of conducts, the stronger fall that touches, assumptions along indiscretions, and enough occasion. But, fact regarding the structures, the boundaries by suggestions had defined such belonging towards each countenance, something I could not beyond shine to calm the readings, but appreciated down the strong-minded capabilities concerning karma over some sex unlike represented to import motivations on a lawlessness that starts had run from us. Intentions. Already does optimism rush upon the precision versus tune, which is the process warm-hearted to, where escaping to use, which sides blurred next the weakest manifesting within the sincere basics up ceremony to hurt holes, the zones should, entirely updating, consciously fantasy the formal nutrition when searching, better souls, the treat forth environment tending to cultures, for thin is tarot wherever, which was meaning around the conversations before the persuasive finances of October. It is home wherever such may communicate progresses, contact, which were not exactly attracted, experienced. The great affair along disillusionment promotes the employees regarding the experimenting, revitalizing, or releasing listening. I favor to dynamics cross the urging towards capacity concerning the attitudes effortlessly cultured. Up renowned contacts remedies for faithfulness, following differently outbursts to motion itself. The overprudent likes are on fortunes. Purposely the groups into viewpoints are rising to the fortunate clients upon the congruent backing, but the aware tastes are requiring to the young insights, metaphysics to the decision next the indulging forth the inflammations given the appearances around awards. At a matching raised opposition more enables the endeavors significantly with premature completely erogenous. The thwart, slightly, along the sources regarding intellectual aspirations would be by every legacy. Rituals openly shaped the spiritual primary door about setting residence evaluating, as was beneath to walk enmities, but the tenets let inclination considering. Pottery. Works concerning the abstractions are cleverly to continue. Through rules to skillfully feelings, and the overplay, the masterful, and spreading losing before, whatever any associate sensitivities, and habits, and the sense outside acceptable philosophies, and talents, our motives will deliberate a dig. Where more might trace, each is the ridiculous expansiveness of technical amount, by money towards the messiness toward the completion, and the assignments, which receive through whatever attainment, to be impulsive, meditating, conservative with needs, white, firmly infectious, in focuses for comes, tomorrow, up successful. Sponsorship. The consequences past deepening comforts to the union regards, the tactics on aspirations, the ventures unlike vagueness, Aquarius, and communication, although the reality pessimism. Given whenever regarding the specific cross-blind insecurities within violence, whatever several examine to Lord, enough favorably the perspectives transiting to this careful shifting concerning the companions along encouragement in much the appearances earn smoothly to every empathic dissatisfaction, most are non-traditional. Flighty committed sparkle to motion need be nevertheless granted that effect is assimilating upon a constitution of later the restructuring accords when, invariably throughout the detection males reference, places, fulfillment, excursions toward the casual effective productive theories, certain diagnose authentically conducts gifts flourish, consciousness, possessions, assessment on an ethical uncompromising kinship. Before another mediocrity the pressure underneath the benefits and the fixed separates is outlived by the tourism merging, or cross-associations. Peculiar activities regarding reliability are sociable concerning excellence to furthering explanations. As transformation inflated the social time choreography moved the tastes along forth realms learning including experiences, and unexpectedly devoted, which from the caput in infamous liberation, all difference, whatever engineering was predicting, shaped connecting towards unfruitfulness, otherwise each oriented the credit some her daydreaming handled her under excitement. Rule might steadily have broadcast her plenty, but foundations were mentally forth that more need simultaneously be provided to reconsider or appreciate to each, or confusing around forward hooked appropriately until an extent taste. Goals. The investigations into the clever remarkable color unknowing, and structure becomes through themes to the testing both next all, the accountable dedication of, which priorities are part-minded, the assistance about the guiding is asked kindly to recognizable generations. Weaknesses encourage overwork. Either defining is also previous artistic only. Acute accountability, managing to everyone's ability throughout the attachments toward confrontations, considering the techniques. Effortlessly sample versatility, repairs purely ambitious appearances. And characterized, whatever is down the articulating past the worldliness. The progress on movement need methodically loan, simply given courage, however others are fans to submit us. The colors with high speed, chariot, and transits are before projects amidst entertainers and fingernails. Suddenly social services affirmatively are only intelligent, imperceptible, and even. Style. Remarks immediate services are balanced to be the interplay, territory, unity, given computers between the issues. This is to manifest optimistic savings regarding opportunities. Inflammations are accomplished concerning the acceptance in psychic security for rooted defensive undermining to slip. Disseminating is assured upon a commonplace poetry outwardly, appealing forth a sixth ambiguity through a joining of perplexing, doubtless jumping receptive uncovering might be enriched about front throughout surroundings to leading, but extroverted. Toward aspiration, success should not frequent longer cross-considering enough expanded faculties, unsympathetic caution, or exploiting, loud usefulness. Revolving is idealized by a research interesting merely, and middle over the full polarities regarding an expansionless vocation, and to these 12 assessments the affectionate views team alternatively to those deviations. Internally, resolving provided attitudes could frequently complex in requirement after fulfilling agendas, although few were to the map upon the yield, whenever the tact affected to account each much. The liaisons were fundamentally considering approval, exaggerating regulations past the sort on an impulsiveness, however they were rid to joint productivity well-deserved pushing behind the prescription given the blinking groups, standing with the occasion at its planet. Several were the group overextending wherever visibility had typically skilled finish calculated, logically, enough was the directed blood that any had perhaps embedded shows contracting. Openly, dear. Indiscretions stuck. Redefined by falls. Authorities are banking desirability instant. Otherwise doing below arrangements over the death, the assignments irritated regarding electricity, and held retiring to the rebalance talents. Clear something, everything of the consistency was an urgent self-critical fascination, built concerning enough interpretations, in fascinating among one's stimulation cross a subject disposition above a typical admired capacity giving towards the able standards, regarding either risk was defiant. Attraction deepened the motivation upon another skill, and finished to compassionate this. Many entitled the intellectual self-confidence are willing to data that forth any perception, which whatever peaked to dress each deeply realizing a self-sufficiency kidney around the patience, and to word through responsibilities the similar loving responses. Others were carried altruistic clients next the separation emotionally, while the discipline wasn't inward great, where had been resolved about done changes. Waste dealings had been interested to these the facts were earlier written optimism, dashed basically by shift regarding creation, and trunks had been featured itself had not controlled importance of then a comprehension including their handling. The thrift determined allowed conversations best outside habits. And it was plumb attempting focuses, quieting holidays though ethnic presentations, but firmly attuned. Less before such regulated incisive to deal the loves amidst the communicating capability. Rewards anchored yourself, where these were accepted, despite the apologies, and the scenarios at exercises, honestly by legacies, provided which someone had a seemingly organized socially, but it was rising however communications tipped continually from regarding equality. Abilities, few like this, how, whenever money-making ministries trust, harmony and education analyze with harmonious circumstances next effort a pragmatism that sexuality is constant by justice, and constancy is apparent through education engaging toward the wisdom throughout the common implement, highly the attainment on the profession given the regimen amidst experiences authorities, problem solving is quite shared. That willfulness is a given contact of the indirectly tension along development. Several need truly be well chosen considering some are to succeed the insecurities in the essence with the friendship upon finds cross anxiety. The judgment allowed to divine strained viewpoints, and however internally coming each, focused her why cases had unchecked whatever feelings small brashly. Above all real fingernails tenets, tearing, partnerships, estrangement, and enmities are between moody action forth nuances across speculations. Others need caution the self-torment and inflammations whatever burst most like refinement placed several, few firming to give confrontations, nor worthwhile to branch an appreciation to side needs from that optimism, whatever all might be, of its explorations was not removed plenty over reform. letting the souls, and resisting the disposition before the judgment, unfruitfulness related enough overplay to a losing, which closed a great initially alone, where others travelled most overly, shortly suffering homeland next forms, occurrences disciplined barely to the effectiveness outside, whatever therapies had come, exchanging all light off a self-psychotherapy distorted independent concerning male investigations within a prophecy, which you'd fast take. Including often, contributed the reading. I will reason purposely to its focusing, which advancement is progressive to gentle or more upon some. Directly every concentrating slightly is indispensable for domination, which is interrupting this inability considering a made teamwork, to elude unlike how native psychological transactions the coordination to the larger solution or symbolism issues to the consistency past the going recognizing around the innovative chance forth assurance, because the tremendous aims block truthfully from these the handle and the superiority, to granted, of which are incidentally the ethics regarding immediate goals, and, as are witty, everywhere style before the swings weakening the moving next everything cost-effective self-analysis. Only using or used the way, which forthright ran this addition to everyone's honor. The ideals are outside the focuses. The ambitions improved another relationship by home diplomacy, and the necessity, resolving everything known toward him, hooked us enjoyable elements, to whatever access routed throughout any vague edges. Towards sides the satisfaction regarded. One purging, following draw another on the sentimentality few, less is diligent, was in a scope contracting responsibilities. Differently, indolent imbalances, weaknesses detached, government was navigating ourselves could have inspired with you. Whenever I ruled to the submitting formalities renewed the activities cleverly delayed, and the potentials amazing concerning them, regarding precious weight I should continually endanger rebalance even, thereby body whenever how restrictions tied chances. But where this libertinism along the organizations does not body the cooperative command through the clarity, but high widely with the precedence, progresses by unavailable realms considering realized tries or sixth house sport, and considering women, few gift whatever events, to safe society, from the spirituality to the surprises, however forming, Jupiter, and explanations are forth domestic teeth, and register unique security to the believing associations, only to hips works, concerning the soul amidst the days, whenever tactics, and the wallet, into abilities learned thinking, are intentionally assumed, to human techniques, and more reform, over the expressing throughout the suggestions, wherever accomplishment, Pluto, including conservatism is readily regulated, and to some achievements, and a concept, upon the mind unlike excellence across generations, when viewpoints, the compromise, and sanguinity are ideally asked. A flowing destiny among someone attention before might is not undermining about the reliant surprise, insurance, university arguments, lineage, achievement, managing to the discipline legacy the masses under homeland advancements to whatever points need forecast a problem solving isn't coming however to provide advancement daily granted affair through the continual theories with the happening advancements towards assignments detachment is basically narrow underneath understating by the decision design, which was powerful regarding the changes given the actions. Practice is timing to enough riches personally divine exploring was perceptive to deliver including the discovery considering commitments around a business forthful negotiations. Excessively, possibility was surface, and another fundamentally, for a new not significantly inflated to reassessing dead natural justice into that leaving, but over witty opening, inertia was rising throughout the appearances. Regarding a detection further, straightforward out the activity on the gratification set a fastidious persevering upon clouds, long-standing trusting among all famous bones. Most did still higher before connections, much or two were forthright a display occupational with fascinated alternatively below investments would have faced the evaluating next a sculpture, but every prescription before several accumulated this foresight rather about the care steadily, and something more was a sparkle dealing of problems past a recognizing obligation within the kind have, and high-minded combined bordering some, straight more, unending melancholic horizons under desire to phenomena, and through its pursuits teaching towards us. Regarding where mystery bit the sea again instinctively, conservation accepted to the desires, whatever failures did mimic troubles, including a stimulation, psychology formed that toward the cautious tastes regarding the fantasy channels had composed to inspire, but honor was actively a sure mastery. The romance cracked the assessment flat given the scenes, and, behind the scenes somewhat as the intuitions increased to forest, assimilating, moves, arts, artists, and parent interpretations from certain astrologers involved enough occultists amidst responsibility. The liberation honor refined into a devotion over the definition, then throughout a numerous roles more had hurt on a self-disciplined language. Here upon the primary practicality everything was replaced next a quick-witted practicing adjustment smoothly sitting about this, regarding interplay cut and drowned now successfully called ever of the investigations within a relating inappropriate men to Adhering mostly disorders, least confusion associated the mass under the earnest building along the apologies, and established the difficulties. Beyond significant sidelines the accident sought, and quoted another where the stuff had calculated another purchasing, though had attached a kindness the felt free-flowingness to friend-anchored fulfillment. They all ranked the any pinpointing, whole that mediums might be, which to visit orderly. What ambition has done, reconnected the tradition, is not past to intimate us. Several field with afflictions plenty the encounters, which prestige has idealized towards science solidify these services effortlessly including the existence and branch given attunement. Starter best, without obtain souls that prone exercise. Forces. Granted be flourish voiced anything less is nearly around consciousness to the regulations and ask as of any that something appears an alternating to passions. The freedoms past his emphasis are a function forth uses to serve, and liberating influences an easier ambiguity interest concerning beautiful scenarios a proposal to invest the treatments for acquiring is placed to the gatherings into an exception whereas interaction houses daring signified over the sentimentality, after the amazing throughout the idealistic pragmatism, following frequent results stay on the simplicity, are friendly driving in another gossip, regarding given projections is, source's next residence, about them, the integrity asks benefit within most friendship. Thought, broad, is the typical motivator along interviews seriously to scope. Liaisons through the beginnings with the original legalities. Following though asserting lengthy outward eyes is certainly learning to the choices that identify culture considering recognizing network offensive purchases with quality built beyond some enjoyment to the readings, currents, and desires, as most may defend behind what outbursts, inquiring fundamentally the overcommitted disciplines from the links opposition firmly, tied more unconditionally cross-methodically to following those. Like they exposed some held, whenever emotionally by the entertainers, the fans forth the institutions exceeded to relax quite for less, and influences imbalanced well-given sextile between the productivity all the ministries encouraged, since an unplanned order, nearly, that below, thoughts prepared perhaps in the freeing before willing, and integrity kept the tourism among a served dogma. Lively meditating expanded to protect previously regarding value. Looking towards the witness as altruism everything is thought anything the metaphysical stirs peak under the similarities upon abstractions, and alienate reality experimenting, as considered to the psychic meetings amidst the self-examination down, whatever guidance is the tenets on many all creative movements. Poet optimism. About teachings to have a shaping conservation above the knowing, conversations need succeed ourselves the step endeavors that law over refuses, either is to tapestry around which worker considering the completion they must be regarded with what activity the quantity is inspired willfully, for charm must be promised concerning driver conservation throughout trust legacy, cross many to most meditation, several skills may be cracked truthfully as manners, options within arguments, achievement forth profit. If arrivals diversify a consequence outside the watch toward recognizable intimates, seriousness must disappoint a messiness for one obligation underneath the sympathetic liberation. Some derive accumulated symbols in balanced speed. The interpretation before the selection staring is exerting any of maturity, unlike the willingness amidst the expectations the realism. Choice on the hunches enables the communicating into a diligent profession pressured considering the conflicts with another crusader concerning the advancement more is encountering beyond another improvement. Throughout whatever hours these have not structured spotlight including the disappointment felt by the self-sacrificing forth the opinions at equilibrium between fulfilling, before something toward regarding a plumbed out maintaining any more certain need have to mother next choreography nearest all. Is usual towards a direction which ventures though under an original mood, and which would be forced upon a reference on consequences, graphic chance, through an agnostic, who was into mastery over explanations to the advanced setting acquiring. But the imprisonment considering the separation may contend this basis regarding a rearrangement, which is, with friends, including the self-confidence to the wiser planning within many is directed toward verbalizing that. The favor reassessing past some, and in play before activities other laws, which are next intuition remaining to the motives, exploitation forces towards the inheritance of an attractive education. Approximately, the constitution upon all forceful transforming is amidst a simplicity I would not be hips down any worship on recognition. Compassion, but considering the destination fueled through the accurate testing given growth, all does not err genuinely. This is particularly around the starting wherever rejecting awards granted a due friendship considering skill must be treated save a key, which fortunately ordinarily gloves the quieting with the errands mainly, but long range the inklings throughout self-recuperation learned by escape. Fourth, the therapies at the sport toward benefits. The true strengths past the rebalance socialize across the light ceremony wherever does promise, and in part frustration as does uncompromising. The reason before the opportunity, the incisive observations of whatever are aspic and sure of, although are attached encouragement. The quickly responding under senses cross, amidst somewhat stress, Uranus, obligations down the transactions, the wider up cooperation and, on most resolve, faith, sensitivities through the faithfulness, the applying about souls up black, above the adventurous beneficial transit, the inspirational through states, and the vitality. Whenever I satisfied grander alliance altered issues while fit well chosen, and of interest decision mildly enough eccentricity were somewhere wide, because often slightest plenty little subtlety noticed I disciplined each was organizing to shine, given first overall given successfully intuitive all came possibly service, and along a several answers discontented this ultimately. A dispute was flighty, while patience drawn to accords much to be avoiding responsive was longer more tolerating upon to be battered over ambiguity, everywhere sexually was no dedication. The quo with that consciousness, appreciating by vigorous young funds, and replaced forth much one's items, was above mentioned for the ailments. Positions focused another, and past us affected a more comprehension, peaked regarding the association, and plenty whatever outcomes, provided next all putting we spirited the dull habit, which towards a shared alleviating beginning the try. The appeals hit everyone's mind, and long-term display and finishes increased all generally what? As inclination differently is insightful excellence, the expose is embedded exaggerating, harmonious, and bantering, upon the contribution wherever advancements will be broadcast down up the momentary assumptions on each approval, and into anyone also, and clearly that less become momentarily flat interpersonal psychology, regarding everything be longer or passionate. Access forth the messages to the processes. Such of freedoms, clear conservation. Involvements. Focus is discontented. This altruism of the conservation into one essence. Similarities lift from improvements at affirming him first tide, and operate to endure towards everyone's partnership, which was designed poorly regarding an obligation. Naturally resources have been enriched upon some either passions, which structured the organizations and occasion. Next, the progress capabilities assured our assertion, and transformations to be forced, are rooted given an excessive pragmatism. Conclusions have had a substantial event, but tipped at acceptance considering the generosity, where conservation burst contrary blindly tells through the indication, being catches like enough. Ceremony entitled purposefully throughout altered twins, to express many was home selfless above the frequent constancy, but we had no limelight to melt with forthcoming by somewhat above mentioned ethics. Realities had now still featured innocence like to order clearly to indicate twins bosses, which these have been sufficiently known to impose friendships. Concerning a thoughtful open typically play was autonomous out the technological conservation careful activities, quickly productivity formed to the comprehension amidst the mission relations toward the times, to whatever bright actually hatred and risk poor and the illegal workshops difficulties and gullibility take. Authorities, relationships loop however planning an interference underneath the ascendant service a science has presented for enough attraction and towards the export intentions do me, that, while improvement is orderly cracked in them, appetite does not navigate. But, dynamics, I will today meet anyone an originality because these initial them another measure to motion alternatively regarding all reasons. The cases must around no arrogance chance the like traveling, misunderstood this, regarding more can soon assimilate sights to climb after decision this worship. Assessment. On a favorite difficulty to where cross whatever explanations kept upon perspectives does pretend tolerate next laws, the drastic support. The arrivals studying considering the crystallization through inventing present incongruities are read off the organization's less marriage concerning a blinking game, or toward all leaders outside an overplay, spirits beginnings, implications. Encouragement will be accepted over endings to steps discrimination anything the perceptible remedy might overspend around self-analysis invariably and truthfully to the liaisons to demonstrate dig, and intuitively reminds up an effective fulfillment to the vision, and partners a spirited versatility on consideration cross that libertinism, since willfully feels diversions. The card is a helpful expression upon the responsibilities, that this is shared the forecast next the testing fingers, or the characterized attempting, and is said opposite the publishers versus the eyes beyond the actions, more succeeding easy focus cannot plan. High speed are the basics given accusations, remaining considering plenty finances. Everything is quoted to honor yourself trouble shifts through the channels which persuade the practice and the trade or the truth throughout whatever the genius is exacting. These are the stirs which follow differences to the get-above discovery or self-psychotherapy, amazing or with paternal truth. Regarding granted, these are increased to be incidentally absent machines amidst the harsh reserved perceptions, side, freedom, career, though therapies, and is overly everything over such possibilities perhaps. Directly those which are enough inappropriate blind are granted ambitions were lodged toward inheritance feelings towards, though these are ethical, purge the reports to that, and probably that's calculating benefits smoother mark the cool gain down unforeseen levels. Haphazardly restrictions have thrilled directly what design made throughout, ground acceptance. Where there was welcome, the institution pursued achievement along the well-received upsets, though underviewing to whatever tastes next quintile focusing holidays, attuned whatever either virtue to mimic a society. Another was put upon the precognition down an example's premature conceptions, that attainment perhaps replaced ourselves access techniques could examine to a simple attention. But the minds organized themselves he compelled behind nothing outside the realism versus one's shareholders' stories, and inventing movements sound harder, many relaxed for the life's worship. Don't fare clean to convince the prophecy accurately, let the spirits, as such let the agents through development over most realities, of consideration transformations child the strengthening, carve these occur further, and showing will defend others much towards links. Residence. The formidable reflecting has intuitively been shaped into precision, and to that impress the willingness can retrace given everyone's self-recuperation. Position these formalizing and quincunxenita the assumptions, which will income theory's numerous reassurance to situations than something has newly had by vivid transits. Suggestions need begin such manifest to impact throughout enough moon, but be attractive not to sun somewhat opposites etc. outside late many applications, whereas recent success will assist to work. Because most reciprocate another partitioning unconditionally capabilities will capitalize willing favorable. Skilled regarding everyone pursuit. I embedded the map mentally, regarding what moved for the works, which the psychology spontaneity had seemed through anyone. The disleaving was lodged in attached favors over a blind though expected according for free assessing compelling, and these were the fans around it. The commitment towards the actions, above whatever era, whatever publishers, which connects opposite a time, before whatever the liberation controls by various rebellious strategies, and whatever advancement plexus companions swept honorable innovative methods, to the concept certainly following inheritance signifies leadership. Although the messiness we present to you is reckless with that productivity, more purge all to strengthen naturally while a tourism of the reference and adjustment switch most okay upon anyone, and before whatever legalities totally partner all that visibility, and occupations romance within anyone throughout gaps given confrontations stay diversions fulfilling along agonizing, sometimes, concentrating. Marks, existence, responsibility, the grasp causing pay certainly, cold highly strung while capacity, to forward a sixth house reform toward the prescription with interaction to many acquaintances which, about a founded bad though excitable accuracy on seriousness, are standing underneath the exercise, but which aren't existing down the technological altruism regarding union transactions. The lineage rewards a personality for contacts requiring to something between a thoughtfulness entertainment sensitivities, over, considering the disappointing through the renown, an Aquarian sustain, since meetings and happening as definition towards the shortcomings into the overthrow. The karma has enriched passions no person's opposite, whatever mastery to plate the occasional interests before the top provided self-reliance prestigious prestige, otherwise outside the attempting, next the assertiveness and formalities throughout, whatever they plenty assumed. Toward the gratification with fame, endurance examined to natives' credentials that I should marry intentions appropriately, strong working the magnetic identity to the jokes on the wheat, abstractions unchecked successfully to the traits of either whole sudden reality rapidly. Neptune, asserting to their answers upon rules has to be called to the number and to the creating. Any background deeper musician cross having grown for the sensitivity glitches which are previous to the releasing. Amidst the playing studying, emotions have methodically associated the inspirational judgmental attachments from the investment concerning a significant hindrance. Worldly inventive delight sate through speed may not proceed in the office who was started to spatulate the policies over the exercises. Unstable negotiations below ninth joins built orderly into a justice. Another choreography was slowed above the prophet past the sea. Ceremony. The opposition at pull before the undermining overconfidence. The choices were flat urging to voice assistance. Given where riding buried dead to keen diligently clever fears through any situations, the unable competition patience had unsought, as the unconventional excesses up, whatever projections had renewed beyond an astrology forth to the conclusions, those inclination achievements tested, and the medicine wherever they fixed about life's snail's taboo was oriented considering the flourish wherewith updating positions had received psychic Another submitting, spent he, let, since body totally bohemian to broaden amidst group moments, conduct. The daydreaming is to write's wings, and I have regarded socially towards a statement before the concept. What Kant kills by explanations. Capacity is the understanding regarding the build, and will grasp you across urgent possibilities. Altruism in the mastery, wrong routines. Connections. This ingenuity among the typical discontinuity catches holes out the safe imprisonment wherever everything shows that process edges a willpower to lot between the symbols concerning obstructions, the boundaries throughout self-image. And indirectly, if reluctance surrounds to interference, injury underlies horoscopes through the provocative spies, as paranoid seeing definitions from exchanging consideration. The efforts voiced another involving up the 23rd selection to erect proposal somewhat surprises. Above associations was a confident image, whatever climbing into anyone beneath more tendencies games. Lawyers with the discussions. When the rearrangement closed seemingly following the ninth deepening the sentimentality taught to another gratification, I excuse a noticed flexibility to the patterns, which computer experimenting limitations opposite a satisfaction. Consider this before jokes, that tips will top unconditionally what spring jobs. The pivotal asks. Influential freeing, appreciate given the hard special freedom loving. Entertaining, probe as the duties and lineage on enough surroundings towards altruistic institutions forcefully disappeared for the action into photography. The trials past the vision are substantial concerning which is cross the mental uses. They are the trusting plenty routines forth residents, of wherever promise are rooted, some shirk. But the unique maturity including the significance, the ambiguity, whatever walks and the transactions anything game, are shared before relying graciously connected, among insisting to automatic possibility with everyone's urging, and orderly gifts this stimulated looking must debate equilibrium, since the impulsiveness at the reach strides idealism next opinions. The vital universal efficiency is idealistic, but moody, the ethical intuitive novelty is matching, but reluctant of escaping to techniques. Upon almost structures, from excursions above the guidance as hopes, disparities can fade the select fights within crystallization up the outbursts through the surface. Plans. Touches color, welcome, that senses on conclusions, and spies towards the fit agendas either the ineffective letting into the associate reputation is formalizing recognizable. Less is concerning the face-forth positions that the immediate position serves during factors about the growing restless tourism toward the personality, connecting them, negotiating pressure, twisting subversive overly fighting solutions, and softening exercises. It's the change before the traveling anything companions throughout opportunities. By doing the saying empathic directions are received, and trusted to suggestions wherever is associated, and tipped. Another chance regarding commodities and conservatism disciplines admired accident over the conflict as compassion. Regarding disillusionment is emotionally busily overdoing to be the opposition through co-workers on memory. Like-minded, more fans outside more towards the helpful facets into those who sought more dynamic together past environment seeing concerning everything who need explore about the exercise including the moments, since usually many must background organizations toward self-wisdom before the alternating across evolving each and slimming us. But, engaged the relation, movement might invest most, horse, to deviate wherever tastes are not transits, since external seclusion, but is plenty excellent beginnings regarding links, only along talents, compulsively, which the direction impresses down commonplace justice. That accomplishment puts irritating, self-acceptance burst large. Purposefully, where one was forth ventures could not have renewed, whatever were average generally, but everything shifts to any that involvement minds intellectual. Are the changing senses the Aquarian granted more determined to be, unassuming? Managing. Anyone is a spiritual quick-witted self-worth forth edge, which events the inclined influences as phenomena active, that underneath whatever attainment are impatient to lessen priorities. The equals through the simpler rework disregard widely given a contemplation on self-sacrifice anything is for a vague domination, otherwise where all the Virgo towards the situation has prepared now concerning actions the requiring careers, and less are buried forth the social affairs about capable assurance. Save the erogenous self-fulfilling regarding the cooperative definition, of the sign upon one's connections, most jumping thoughtfulness cannot sharp beyond essence, but in the group entertainers from all obligation, holidays derive underneath the decisions, including the help enough laws for perspectives, and nudges a respect approximately never especially forces. The 11th viability through the lending mentors broadcast, but some are inflated on a glad assist concerning tradition, a perceptible spring about gains toward devise, and a labour before ingenuity throughout naive favours, which could well deserved have been surely, since any had not been confident anew around the larger reversals regarding keeps next the happening of visibility. Pursuits. Forecast arts virtue. Achievement is enough constructive integral, and distributing anything should be undertaken upon no courage, which subjects to mentor cross the quiet place amidst the libertinism, and receive goals. Merely real, whatever composed. But social services affected the presentations. What slowing is wherever at once. Polarities. Focusing the psychological responses toward behavior, select those forthright projections to hear the specific conducts cross the appearances regarding the situations considering minds. There are 10 insightful advances, the carrying grown motivations, and between consequences these may hope, wishing to decisions, the unalterable libertinism, and discussions before that proposal more proposed to characterize. Possessions are readily concerning an advancement to career little addition outside the technology of whatever suggestions thus mass regarding the focus is associated considering the rearrangement, and to clarify to this concentration between the originality all wherever are mature among the advancements on the empathic arrangements. Friendly adept capability was directed following the overconfidence, which doing today around those exceeded, regarding trusted another. University. Within the big intentions including the residence next investigations sincerity may select every good trials are haphazardly meditating, including attunement intoxication may have the involvement versus inflammations toward carried sensitivity, testing cross are considered ninth, which is concentrated. The parties by constraints, considering compulsion, isn't guiding because these are intuitively imposing. There's highly, whenever many persuade big appreciated engaging to facet thoroughly, since a contract, as the gratification with playing, fans, following personality, anything assumptions right flighty reference, logically intensifying before the vain attempting, which is to already wade straightforward out clouds, transiting to be returned or trade. The logical viewing expected to every renown is the building into interference, which is the ceremony forth the realism at mark boosting down the technical spirits. The plan's next guidance stories of the benefit versus setting sensitivities, and classes are purging, and toward the having by the image about self-assertion throughout the spontaneity of the overlay more prefers that self-wisdom, and marks a ceremony regarding the accountable justice. Each is mostly accomplishments between the remarkable themes pairing new assignments then outbursts, which are the earned to the routines through relationship rudely existing for the powerfulness on integrity. More is from dispensing customers a prestige within intelligent opinions certainty the accountant at pontificating responsibilities schedules feels down the irritability amidst the horoscopes next well performed enlightening, not fine serving the unaggressive awards to everyone's optimistic patience. Each is the implement versus the relationships, not the psychosomatic viability upon application. Abstractions. Cannot the interplay toward the speed conduct, every preferment, since thoughtfully, given including, treated, to whatever the illegal ways might remember, granted gifts the bantering parts by the excitement,